Okay, it should be going live.
I see something that says webinar is now streaming live on Facebook.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled mayor and council meeting for Monday, January 24th, 2022. We're starting a little earlier than normal because we do have a lot to cover. If you are not speaking, please mute your device. And we're going to begin this evening with a moment of silence like we always do in live session. However, this evening I would like to dedicate the moment of silence to the firefighters in Baltimore City that lost their lives today, and the one that is battling for his life at Chicago. With that being said, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Mary, do you have a virtual flag for us to do the pledge? Okay, so everybody can unmute at this time so that it's not just me saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And then go ahead and put your hand over your heart and we'll begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
of the
United States
States of America,
and to the
and to
republic
republic
for which it stands, one
one
nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
with liberty and
justice
justice
for
for all.
And
Thank you. And then let's go back to muting just for the sake of everybody watching, if you're not speaking. Everybody that's tuning in from home, if you would like to comment during the public comment section, that can be done through the chat feature or through joining and raising your hand, and then Mary would call on you during that portion of our meeting. There will be no comments taken from Facebook and addressed at this meeting. With that being said, let's move on to agenda item number 1, which is the approval of the minutes from our regular session, January 10th, 2022.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Councilmember Orris.
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Nichols, I believe. And then Councilmember Nur, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Purnell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. So the regular session minutes from January 10th, 2022 passed unanimously with all council members present. So there's been a slight adjustment to our agenda for this evening. A new agenda item 2 is going to be resolution 2022-01. And that entails a resolution that would whoever's ringing, let's go ahead and silence that. The resolution 2022-01 would enter into a settlement agreement for the town of Berlin for the class action opioid litigation case that the town of Berlin signed on to back in May 2019. An agreement has been reached at the state level through the state attorney general's office. And as a municipality that has a case part of this class action suit, we do have to enter into a settlement agreement for the town for this suit. A formal press release will be issued once we have the specifics of how much that settlement is. And that I do want to stress to everyone that we have not received any funding yet, and that once we know more, once we have a firm amount of what that settlement is, we will issue a press release. So with that being said, I do need action by the council this evening to enter into resolution 2022-01. And I'll read this: resolution of the mayor and council of the town of Berlin authorizing its attorney to execute national settlement agreements with Jason, and the distributors of the opioid litigation. So
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the opioid class action settlement and adopt the resolution.
Thank you. And I have a motion by Councilmember Nur and a second by Councilmember Orris. Councilmember Burrell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Purnell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Nichols, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. So the resolution 2022-01 passes unanimously. Thank you. So agenda item number 2 is a presentation of the town's 2022 goals. I do want to thank everybody. This originally started with a social media request to the public to send in their ideas of their 2022 goals for the town of Berlin. This agenda item number 2 should read the calendar 2022 goals for the town of Berlin. And then the council submitted their ideas as well, what they would like to see. And then our department heads and employees submitted their ideas of goals for the town of Berlin as well. I put some of my own in and we culminated it into this list that we have this evening. With that being said, some of the goals that are not on this list that are more department specific. This is an external 2022 goals sheet for the public to follow along. We do have some internal ones that are more department specific. So just go over these briefly. Goal number 1 is to maintain and create safe, inclusive public spaces, to continue progress on the community center, improve the walking path at Stephen Decatur Park, which you'll hear more about this evening, begin the process to replace a current playground with an inclusive playground, explore options to bring a dog park to Berlin, renovate the Veterans Memorial at Main Street to be more accessible, redevelop Burbage Park, finalize a sustainable path forward for Heron Park, progress toward identifying a location for a skate park, complete Stephen Decatur Park restroom project, create a plan for the passive use areas of Heron Park, install life rings around the water at Heron Park and Stephen Decatur Park, and create a pocket park at the corner of Flower Street and Bay Street. Goal number 2, support diverse art, culture, and entertainment activities throughout town. Hold the inaugural Flower Street Festival, hold the inaugural Homecoming Parade, explore possibilities of a gospel festival, explore options to create public outdoor concert venue. Goal number 3 is to enhance neighborhood, community, and employee safety. Continue to evaluate the use of speed cameras. Complete a study for the law enforcement officers pension system, LEOPS. Work with the State Highway Administration to install traffic lights at both ends of Main Street. And when we say that, we mean where it intersects the highway. I have gotten a little bit of feedback about putting traffic signals downtown. We don't have any intention of doing that. Finish the 2022 with 0 workplace injuries. Explore options for roundabouts in town. Create a Berlin Community Emergency Response Team, CERT team. Deploy a pedestrian and bicycle safety PSA program. Goal number 4 is to manage and maintain infrastructure. Focus on stormwater and flood management projects. Replace the broken fossil fuel generators with natural gas generators at our electric plant. Complete an updated electric utility rate study. Replace aging water meters, which you'll hear about this evening as well. Continued maintenance and/or construction of streets and sidewalks throughout town. You'll hear a little bit more about that this evening. Renovate the former police station at Town Hall. Routine ditch management and assessment. Complete GIS housing inventory assessment. Review parking study and work towards a solution for parking issues. Goal number 5 is to increase interconnectability between neighborhoods and districts. Work with State Highway Administration to install crosswalks in areas where crosswalks are not painted. Begin the process to build a pedestrian bridge across Route 113 at Bay Street. Begin construction of phase 1 of the Rails to Trails project. Goal number 6, promote environmental stewardship and manage natural resources. Support the ongoing development and implementation of the Berlin Beautification Committee. Explore participation in the America in Bloom program. Installation of water bottle refilling stations. Increase recycling efforts throughout town. And develop a plan to bring a composting program to residents and businesses. Goal number 7 is to increase tourism and continue to support the small business community. Support the ongoing efforts to increase tourism. Rebrand the town as a destination community. Begin a small business development workshop. Land a story about Berlin in a national magazine or publication. Goal number 8 is to improve the town's financial position. adopt enterprise fund reserve policy. You'll hear about that this evening. Achieve the required balances for the general fund reserve. That should make our accountants that are on the call pretty happy. Achieve that's what we already just did. Implement rate changes for water, sewer, stormwater service. We're going to talk about that this evening. Improve the working capital balances for the Water Resources Fund. Equitable funding for fire and EMS. We'll hear about that this evening. Hold the property tax rate at the current level. Work toward achieving the Government Finance Officer's GFOA Distinguished Budget Award. And finalize the American Rescue Plan Act spending plan. Number 9, clear, transparent, and effective communication. Update the town's website. Increase accessibility of documents online. Digitize the documents within our town departments. Grow participation in vacant board, commission, and committee seats. Improve audio-visual capabilities in council chambers, and complete a strategic plan. The last goal is the plan for town growth and development. Finalize a document for commercial architectural design standards. Conduct public workshops regarding growth and development, and implement short-term rental regulations. So with that being said, I would like to once again thank everybody that took the time to submit their ideas and things that they would like to see for 2022. I think we did a pretty good job of trying to culminate all of that into one document and combine those themes. If there's something that you're sitting at home and you're like, man, this just came to me and it's a great idea for the town, feel free to email us or call or whatever works for you and let us know what that idea may be. That being said, I'll take any comment or questions from the council.
The only comment I would have is that this is a comprehensive list, and it's going to take some doing and working together to make a dent in all of these goals. But I also think that these goals lay a splendid direction for our town.
Thank you. And thank you for your feedback and the ideas that you presented.
Thank you, Mayor.
I think you've done a great job here. This is a great idea and a good plan to start forward.
It's not me. I put it all together and tried to summarize to the best of my ability, inserted some of my views, but I think by and far, this is a pretty good representation of the people, our employees, and the elected body coming together. So I do appreciate it.
Good job.
Thank you. All right, with that being said, let's move on to our next agenda item, which is number 3, an overview of the financial highlights for 2020 or the fiscal year 2021. And that's going to be done by our outside auditing firm, PKS. And I believe we have Mike and Leslie, right?
Yes, we're here. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. I want to thank you all for inviting us here this evening. I'm sorry we're not able to meet in person, but I guess after the last couple of years, we're kind of getting used to Zoom. Joining me this evening is Leslie Michaelek, who's a manager with PKS and Company. She's been an audit engagement manager for some time to the town of Berlin. And also we have on the meeting Lindsay Keene, who's a supervisor with the audit engagement for the town as well. Prior to tonight's meeting, we have delivered and reviewed a draft of the financial statements and all the reports with the town administrator and the finance director. So our purpose this evening is to kind of present the overall audit results, mention some of the key highlights, and then answer any questions you may have for us this evening. I'd like to begin with the audit report itself, which is on pages 1 through 3 of your bound financial statements. I don't know if you have those with you or not, but it's the 60-page report, which includes the financial numbers as well as our reports. And on pages 1 through the top of page 2 really kind of covers management's responsibility for the financial statement preparation itself, and also for the fair presentation of those numbers. And just to remind everyone that the numbers in the audit report are the town's numbers. These are not prepared by us. So, I mean, we do help assemble them, but they are the town's figures and they are responsible for that fair presentation. On the bottom of page 1 and top of page 2 is the auditor's responsibilities. and related to the audit, which is to gather evidence, perform audit procedures in order to express an opinion on those financial statements. And as far as the opinion, the most important paragraph really in the report is on page 2, about the middle of that paragraph is the opinion paragraph itself. And I'm happy to report that our opinion on the town's financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2021 is unmodified. This essentially means that the financial statements present fairly the financial position of the town in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. This is also known and often referred to as a clean opinion, and is the highest level of assurance that we can give as outside auditors. I do want to mention that going forward, next year's audit report will be completely revised. The Auditing Standards Board has decided to make significant changes in the audit report and its presentation. Unfortunately, that report's going to become probably 5 pages in length rather than 3. But they felt that it was worth making some changes at this point because it's been such a long time since we changed the standard report. But we'll deal with that issue next year. The other report I want to mention is at the very end of the financial statements, bound financial statements on pages 59 and 60. It's the very last 2 pages. And that's a government auditing standards report covering internal controls and compliance matters. And just to refresh your memory from the past, unlike the audit report on the financial statements, this is not an opinion paragraph. This is not an opinion on the internal controls or compliance with laws and regulations, but rather it's a report on any findings or deficiencies that we may have noted based on our audit testing. And once again, I'm happy to report that we did not identify any material weaknesses or compliance issues that we need to, as a result of our audit testing. So that's good news for the town. So that's kind of a summary of the 2 reports that are included in the financial statements. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Leslie Michaelick to kind of cover some of the financial results with you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I guess if you want to switch to the next slide. The town reports, as I'm sure you're aware, the town reports its activities in different funds. Town has a total of 6 different funds. And the funds are actually divided into 2 types: the governmental funds and the enterprise or business type funds. So we'll start with the governmental funds. The primary operating fund of the town is its general fund. That reports activities for public safety, for public works, recreation and development, or recreation and parks, economic development, and administration. Activities in the general fund are financed through tax revenues, grants, and some service charges. The general fund uses what's called the modified accrual basis, which really is very similar to the way you budget. It accounts for cash coming in and cash going out. The focus of the general fund is on short-term assets, so it doesn't consider capital assets or long-term debt. So if we look at the next slide, for the general fund, for the year ended June 30th, 2021, the general fund had total revenues of $7,743,000, had expenditures of $5,961,000, for revenues over expenditures of $1,781,000. Other sources of revenue, sources and uses of revenues, you had a little bit of proceeds from the sale or disposal of fixed assets. And then you had a transfer out of $1,691,000. If you'll recall, the mayor and council approved an equity transfer from the general fund to the sewer fund to wipe out 50% of the amount that was due between those funds. So that's what that line item is, that $1,691,000. So the net change in the fund balance was an increase of $124,218. If you want to look at budget variances, revenues, you had a favorable variance of $1,578,000 of actual revenues over budgeted revenues. And that was really due to increases or favorable variances in taxes, highway user fees, slots revenues, and some county grant revenues. You also had a favorable variance in expenditures where your expenditures came in $450,000 less than what you budgeted. The next slide talks about the fund balance. Just want to start out as to what exactly the fund balance is. The town ended the year with a fund balance of $6,293,000. And that fund balance is calculated as the difference between assets and liabilities. And as I mentioned, that it only considers short-term assets and liabilities. The fund balance is a key measure of the health of the town. And it's important to maintain an adequate level of fund balance. So if you look at the next page, the fund balance, a lot of people say, well, if they focus on the fund balance as a measure of the health of the town. And it's true that if you have a low fund balance or a deficit, that usually means the town's having some financial difficulties. The opposite is not necessarily true, and then a high fund balance automatically means that the town is financially stable, because we have to divide the fund balance into different categories. And these are the categories that you'll see the fund balance divided into. There's non-spendable, which is really made up of like inventories, prepaid amounts, and also the due from the other funds is included in there. Restricted would be anything that's restricted either by an external source like a granting agency, another government, or by a town ordinance. Committed funds would be amounts that can only be spent for specific purposes, usually determined by resolution of the town. An assigned fund balance is an amount that the mayor and council intend to use for specific purposes, but it's not as stringent as restricted or committed. It's really just a designation, an assignment that can be unassigned as easily as it was assigned. And of course, the remaining fund balance is considered unassigned and can be used for any purpose. So if we look at the next fund, you can see the breakdown of, or the next slide, you can see the breakdown of your $6 million fund balance. Of this amount, the non-spendable portion is $1,609,000. And this really represents the amount that's due from the sewer fund. We call it non-spendable because it's really not available to finance the current operations of the town. Now, this is 50% approximately of what it was last year because of the equity transfer that the mayor and council approved. The restricted fund balance consists of impact fees and slot revenues that the town has accumulated and not spent, but there's legal limitations on how you can spend it. Included in assigned is money that you've designated for health insurance, the police forfeiture monies, money that's set aside or designated for the community center, and also monies that were budgeted in fiscal year 22 for the use of prior year surplus or prior year reserves is considered assigned. The town ended the year with an unassigned fund balance of $2,941,000. So if we look at the unrestricted amount, which would be the assigned and unassigned totaled of $3,880,000, this represents about 8 months of average operating expenditures. The next graph shows the your fund balance over a period of 6 years, just so you can see where you've been. It was at its highest level in 2016 at just over 8.4 million, and down to the current balance of 6.2 million. And you can see you've had a little dip there in the middle, and you're working your way back up. The next slide is a chart that shows where your money comes from in the general fund. The largest source of revenue is property taxes of just over 4 million, which makes up 54% of your total revenues. Other significant sources of revenues would be intergovernmental or grant revenues of 1.3 million, which makes up 17% of your total revenues, and service charges from enterprise funds of 796,000, which is 10% of your total revenues. If we compare revenues this year and last year, revenues increased 946,000 or 14%. There's a large increase in state income taxes, which increased 243,000. Also, licenses and permits increased, mostly due to the easing of the COVID restrictions. Also, increases in slot revenues, highway user fees. The next slide shows where your money goes. The largest area of expenditures is public safety, which is the police department and the fire department, makes up 39% of your total expenditures. Other significant areas would be general government or administration, which is 23% of your total expenditures, and public works, which is 15% of your total expenditures. Again, if we compare expenditures to last year, expenditures increased about 3% for 170,000, mostly due to the increase in capital outlay expenses. Included in there were a couple new vehicle purchases and some road surfacing projects. So that's the general fund. If we move on to the enterprise funds, as I said, the enterprise funds or business type funds, the town has 4 of them: the electric, water, sewer, and stormwater. These funds are intended to be run for the same as a business for profit. So they're funded by user charges, which are set at an appropriate level to cover their expenses. We use what's called the accrual basis of accounting, which is different than the general fund. It includes both long-term and short-term assets and liabilities. Under the accrual basis, revenues are recorded when you earn them, regardless of when you receive the cash. And expenses are recorded when the goods or services have been received, even if you haven't paid the cash yet. So if we look at each of the enterprise funds separately, the first would be the electric fund. If you want to move to the next slide. The electric fund had operating income of 501,000 for the year, compared to an operating loss in the prior year of 144,000. There was a 12% increase in service charges in the electric fund. So we had some non-operating revenues and expenses, had some interest expense, some loss on disposal of assets, and some insurance proceeds, for a net increase in net position in the electric fund of 323,893. The next slide shows the water fund. The water fund had a net operating loss of 156,000, which was slightly larger than the operating loss last year. There was a 2% increase in service charges. Expenses were pretty consistent with the prior year. There was a large increase in special connection fees, which were 401,000 for the year. So the water fund had an increase in its net position of 245,845. Next slide is the sewer fund. The sewer fund had an operating loss of 181,000. Again, a little bit of an increase over the prior year of loss of 140,000. We had some interest expense of 179,000, and special connection fees went way up from the prior year, were 1.1 million. And then you'll see the transfer from the general fund. This is that equity transfer, which in a sense wrote off 50% of the amount that the sewer fund owed the general fund. So the sewer fund had an increase in its net position of 2,444,000. And then finally, the next slide is the Stormwater Fund. Not much went on here during the year. The Stormwater Fund had an operating loss and a net decrease in net position of $101,512. The final slide, I think it's the final slide. No, almost. So the enterprise funds, in the general fund, we talked about the fund balance. In the enterprise or the business type funds, we talk about net position. So if you, in a for-profit business, you would talk about retained earnings. So it's a very similar concept. Where the fund balance only considers short-term or spendable resources, net position also includes long-term assets such as capital assets, long-term debt, and also some net pension obligations. At the end of the year, the enterprise funds in total had a net position of $25,919,000. Of this amount, $23 million was invested in capital assets, less any accumulated depreciation and any related debt. We had some restricted net position of $911,000. These are the special connection fees that have been accumulated and not spent, and they're restricted for capital projects, which left an unrestricted net position of $1,895,000 in total. Now you will notice that in the sewer fund, the unrestricted net position was a deficit of $927,000, and included in that is the amount that the sewer fund owes the general fund of $1,416,000. So that's basically 50% of what it was last year. The stormwater fund also has a deficit of $204,000, and it includes $192,000 that the stormwater fund owes the general fund. The final slide now shows the enterprise fund's working capital. So working capital is a measure that indicates the liquid or spendable portion of the enterprise fund capital. And it's calculated by taking current assets less current liabilities. So I'd like to figure out how many days. So the Government Finance Officers Association recommends no less than 45 days of working capital. It's important, again, to maintain a good level of working capital. So it's a buffer for meeting any future obligations. And you will see that each of the funds does include more than that recommendation of 45 days. You see of working capital. And that's all I had, unless people had any questions. I've thrown a lot of information out there at you.
I have one question, if I could. Looking back at the enterprise fund, specifically the water fund, that is the only one to have a decrease in operating revenue for the year compared to the previous year. And I'm just wondering, how is that possible when you stated we had a 2% service increase, plus we had new homes come online, new businesses? We should have had a healthy increase in the water fund. Can you explain that?
So service charges did increase by 12%. You have a line item called sales and services revenue, which are, a lot of that comes from developers where you provide services to them and they reimburse you. That line item actually went down pretty significantly, which resulted in a net decrease in total revenues. If you have the bound financial statements, if you look at page 56, that gives you a breakdown of the different sources of revenue, and it will show you where it is. So service charges did go up, but the sales and services line went down.
Yeah, Leslie, that sales and services was down about 28,000, and then the other category was down about 11,000 was the miscellaneous revenue, and I'm not exactly sure what makes up that, but that total is about 56,000, but it was lower than the previous year as well.
Yeah, I don't recall what's in there off the top of my head.
Yeah, but the details of that are on page 56, as Leslie mentioned.
Thank you.
That's a good question too, Councilmember Nur, especially given what's on the agenda later this evening. Now, Mike, Leslie, and Lindsay, while we have you on here after you've had some time with our financial statements and preparing this report, this evening we are going to talk about adjusting or a discussion regarding some adjustment to maybe some of our rates, because you mentioned the 45 days for operating expenditures for the fund. Now, that covers the operation side, but where I think we're really lacking in our infrastructure is the reinvestment in the capital side. With that being said, this evening we are going to have a discussion about adjusting those rates to cover some of our aging infrastructure. Do you have anything that you could add to that discussion?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think from a longer term perspective, I've seen probably over the last several years, I don't call it a lack of, but a lowering, if you will, of the capital improvements, and deferring those maintenance and capital improvements and placement, I think over a long time can catch up to you pretty quickly. So I think dealing with those things now makes a lot of sense. And the other thing I'll point out is that the water fund, sewer fund, and stormwater fund all have operating losses just from general operations. And it's, even though it's improved since probably 2019 was kind of a high for those losses, the last 2 years have improved, but you're still generating operating losses from operations. So to me, you got to focus not only on the capital replacement somewhere down the line, but also just getting these funds to an operating, at least a break even from that standpoint. So I think it's really focused in two areas: ongoing operations, because these funds are typically meant to support themselves from services and fees. If the general fund has to keep contributing to those things over a period of time, and that happened, particularly for the sewer fund, that's where you got into that balance where you ended up having to, $3 million that was owed back to the general fund. That shouldn't happen in an enterprise fund. An enterprise fund should be able to support itself from operations. So I think there's really two areas you got to look at: is the operational side and on the capital improvements from a long-term perspective.
And I think to that note, on the operating side, at least speaking, and we do have SIRCAP on the line as well. So if needed, feel free to chime in. I think we have all the heads, or at least the folks that understand the system well, available on the call. And I think many of our department heads are here too. So I think it's important to take this time to discuss it a little bit. Mike, to your point, our metering is really throwing off a lot of our revenue generation in the water and the sewer side. We had nearly, I think, a little more than 400 meters that were reading inaccurately, which we're working this evening to hopefully move forward with an RFP to change those meters out. And I think that once we have our meters online, we can really have a good sense of what that revenue stream looks like. Gene from SIRCAP has some good ideas about ways to reevaluate those rates. So I'm hoping that maybe not in FY22's audit, but maybe in FY23, we start to see that changing of the tide a little bit.
I think that's a good move for the town. Yeah.
If I may just add something, first of all, I agree completely with your auditor.
Gene,
But
we know each other, Gene. Just go ahead and say who you are and who you represent.
I'm sorry. There we go. Technical difficulties, I beg your pardon. I'm Jean Holloway with Southeast Rural Community Assistance Project, and I'm on the agenda later. But just to add, part of your operating loss can be attributable, and I can't tell you quantify how much it is, but at least part of it can be attributed to the fact that you're producing water that costs you money to produce and you're not getting revenue from it. So that goes to your meters as well. But I would echo everything Mr. Klager just said.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments for Mike, Leslie, or Lindsay as it relates to our FY21 audit?
I guess I got one question is, so everything we've done with rates in the past, we're close, but not quite there yet. Is that what I'm hearing?
In my view, I think you're getting there. As I said, when I went back and looked at 2019, the losses were substantially higher from operations. So I think you're making progress, but I think there's still a ways to go to kind of get where you need to be.
A great presentation. Thank you all.
thank you all for having us.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? If not, we'll let Mike, Leslie, and Lindsay go. All right, thank you all this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let's move on to agenda item number 4, which is 4A is an RFP 2021-03, the paving of town streets and pathway. Our town administrator is going to run point on this.
Good evening, one and all. Back in the fall of 2021, we came before the mayor and council with a proposal for an RFP to pave 3 streets, and those streets were Decatur Street, East Graham, and Stevenson Lane, and then in turn also with an idea to replace the walking path at Stephen Decatur Park. RFP went out. Bid opening was on December 15 of 21. We had 3 bidders. Of those 3 bidders, we're familiar with all 3. The bidder that we're recommending tonight is George and Lynch, and they came in at $166,343, which was below what we had estimated at the onset. And again, what is proposed in this scope of work are the 3 streets, Decatur Street, East Graham, Stevenson Lane, and then the excavation of the current walking path. The current walking path would be excavated 6+ inches, backfill with crush and run, and then with 2 inches of hot mix to complete the path. So what I'm seeking tonight from the council is the approval to move forward with George and Lynch at $166,343.
So moved.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Purnell.
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Burrell. Councilmember Nur, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Orris, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Nichols, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the vote for approval of RFP 2021-03, my apologies, paving of town streets and pathway passes unanimously.
Can we just note again with that one, especially with the East Graham, because we use that one every day for school. Can we just note that that be done when school's not in session, please?
Absolutely. And the other question that I will answer before it get asked, when do we think we'll begin this project? A lot of that's going to be in the hands of the asphalt manufacturers. So it's going to have to warm up a little bit before that happens anyway. So we'll see what we can do. We will make it happen where East Graham does not, we don't have the issue with school buses.
Now,
Thank you.
Jeff, the other thing is that out of that $166,000, just so everybody's aware, payment wise, can you summarize that?
I'm going to have to defer to Natalie because I don't have that in front of me.
Okay. Finance Director Natalie Slay.
So for the fiscal 22, we have allocated the state highway fund in as well. And the difference or the work, we were talking about the impact fees.
So just so everybody's aware, it's the highway user revenues and impact fees to cover the 166,000. So thank you. Agenda item number 4B, RFP 2021-04, Branch Street Well Number 3 Well Replacement Project. Our town administrator is going to run point on that as well.
And this, we approached the mayor and council last fall. As everyone is well aware, we've had discussion regarding Well 3, which is on Branch Street. It failed. So in turn, DBF and with the assistance of AC Schultes came in, scoped the well. We knew it in simple terms, it had collapsed at the base, and it's a very old well. They had insult to injury, if you will. So we did go out for bid on this, and bid openings came in back on December the 15th as well. We had 2 successful bidders. One was the organization AC Schultes, and then the other was Somerset Well. AC Schultes came in with a bid of $64,581, and this is for phase one of the project, because if you think back to last fall, back on October the 25th, we had a discussion regarding this. We had multiple discussions regarding this, and this was all approved at the time via a consensus, and DBF has estimated that the total cost to replace the well, the motors, the pumps, and all the configuration would be up to $350,000. And what was agreed upon back in October was to utilize the ARPA monies for that. So a couple things I want to accomplish here. One, I'm asking the mayor and council to approve the contract going to AC Schultes to do the test well and the production well. And then at some point during this conversation, I'm seeking a formal motion to approve up to $350,000, and that coming from ARPA money. We can't touch the ARPA money unless there's a formal motion.
So let's do this, and the town administrator and I talked about this as well. Let's do the motion if the council would like to approve up to or not to exceed $350,000 from ARPA for phase one, which is what you have before you this evening, and phase two, which is what the town administrator described. And if you remember, we did a similar process several months ago for the stormwater on Washington Street as well. So the first motion we would need is to allocate up to $350,000 for this Branch Street well number 3.
Before we go,
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
before we go to the motion, could I ask the town administrator to share with the public the compromising position not having this well puts the town in?
It's an excellent question, Councilmember Burrell. We are down today. We're operating, I'm gonna say it like this. I'm counting our blessings that this is the fall, winter months, because Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, this is atypically when we utilize a lesser amount of water throughout any given 12-month period. So that's said and done, with one well down, we're still producing enough water to supply the town. But I don't like to jeopardize it or to even put folks on edge, but you can't maintain that. So the new well is needed to put that cushion in place so that we can operate and not have to worry about being a lack of water. So this said and done, the test well and the production well, once we're given the thumbs up, and once the contract's been awarded, and when the entity can begin work, we're looking at about a 90-day turnaround time before that production well is functional. And then in talking with Josh this morning from DBF, another 30 to 45 days before the mechanics are put in place in that well house to make it a fully productive well.
The other thing is, and we discussed this back when, what was the date, Jeff, that you had the consensus?
That was October the 25th.
So back in October, we also discussed the idea of moving forward. I believe this was a Josh and Jamie collaboration with possibly trying to target some grant funds for a fourth well to bring that online, so that hopefully we're not going to be in this position again. Our wells and infrastructure are aging, so there is a need to take a more proactive approach. But at this present moment, what we need to address is we need 3 wells for operational purposes.
Thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Jeff, I'd like to also point out, you did your due diligence way back when by looking at trying to save the town money by recoring the existing well that was failing. And it was determined you couldn't get enough flow out of it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can't use a smaller straw.
I think Troy had a motion.
Well said.
So it was not a viable option. That said, I'd like to make a motion to approve the use of ARPA funds up to $350,000 for this project.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Nur to approve up to 300, not to exceed $350,000 of ARPA money for
Second.
Branch Street Well number 3. And I have a second by Councilmember Purnell. Councilmember Burrell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Orris, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Nichols, how do you vote?
Aye.
So the allocation of up to $350,000 of ARPA money has been approved unanimously. We also need a motion to move forward with RFP 2021-04, the Branch Street Well project.
So
number
moved.
3. So I believe that was Councilmember Purnell.
I think it was Jack.
Councilmember Orris, I'm sorry, I was trying to look for the light up on the screen. So Councilmember Orris, thank you for the motion.
Second.
Second, third.
I have a second by Councilmember Burrell. Councilmember Nur, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Purnell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Nichols, how do you vote?
Aye.
And RFP 2021-04 Branch Street Well number 3 passes unanimously.
Thank you.
The last thing I do want to point out, and I don't want to jinx us by any means, these are not guarantees when you drill a well, just for everybody watching, that we hope that due to the proximity of this well that we are going to be successful with the drill, but there is no guarantee when you're doing something like this. So just a little caveat. Agenda item number 5 is a draft RFP discussion. Agenda item number 5A is RFP 2022-01, smart meter equipment procurement. And our town administrator's running point with Josh and Jamie as well.
What I want to share with the mayor and council regarding this, we had discussions quite a while ago with, it was kind of spearheaded by Gene Holloway with SERCAP. And I think we all know, and Jamie is probably the most well-versed on this, where we are at with meters. Jamie can share with you, you've heard 1,000 times, mechanical meters, the day they come out of the box, they begin to fail. So we know we've got the issue. I mean, the mayor mentioned a few moments ago about 400 meters. That's the 400 that we know about. It's an ongoing process with meters. So when we got into from a staff level discussion regarding this with replacing meters and with the assistance of Josh Taylor with DVF, the one thing that we felt that made financial sense and just flat out good sense was, instead of putting together an RFP for procurement and installation all in one bucket, we felt it would be financially prudent to break this down. And the way we've broken this down, we have 2 separate RFPs, or they're sisters, if you will. One is for the procurement of meters, and then the second would be for the labor to install the meters. It could be the same company in the end, but I think this keeps people on their toes and it keeps people honest, instead of someone inflating one thing and trying to get the other. I think in the end, we're going to have a better product. So that said, I'd like to turn it over to Josh and to Jamie.
Thank you.
If you, I know Gene Holloway has a slide in there, and I know Mary can hear me, but she has a slide, and give or take, that's probably what we are losing. I don't know. I know as I have it on my, she should have it. I forget what it's losing from the water and wastewater, but there's a slide roughly. If you stop right there, Mary, that's roughly, you're looking at $500,000 in a year. So 2 years, this would pay for itself internally, but I think that explains a lot why we would need to go to the new meters, because meters are only accurate the day you put them in. After the meters that we have after the first day, they're not reading as consistent as the day you put them in.
And as Jeff indicated, we really thought that splitting this RFP up into procurement and installation was the best way to go. We're going to be ordering over 2,000 meters, and there's no need to pay a middleman for the cost of the meters themselves. So the town procuring that directly from the meter company is going to save money with the purchasing, and then working directly with a contractor who's able to install the meters should save money in the long run.
I agree. Good job.
Now, before everybody gets excited, there is a price tag with this, and Josh and Jamie have kind of estimated, and I think it's a good estimation. We're looking at roughly $1 million. Tonight, you can look at it two different ways. Yes, we're seeking the approval for money, and again, we're looking at the money coming from ARPA money. But the main purpose of tonight is to move forward with the RFPs, and then when we come back with a final RFP where we've got the money, I think it's the wise decision at that point to come back for the money.
I think you're right. At this time, we just want to approve the RFPs and get them out and listed so that we can start getting those proposals. I do see Councilmember Orris has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Jeff and Josh and everyone. And Jamie, thank you. I just have a couple, can everybody hear me okay?
Okay.
Okay. I just want to make sure I have on page 3 of 10 under minimum requirements. Just giving everybody time to look at that. It says equipment delivery shall be made within 90, and then parentheses, it has 60 days. So which is it? And is it enough time given the current state of parts and whatnot? Well, this is an RFP, so
That is 90 days. I apologize. It's my typing error. I didn't update the 90 to 6 from 60.
Okay, no problem. And thank you. And then my other question is on page 8. Procure and deliver electronic tablet devices. It says 4, and I'm just Jamie or Jeff or anyone. I'm wondering who staff-wise would have these, and is 4 enough?
Well, 4 is never enough, but it will at least get us started. And we were thinking of having it in, like I would have one in my truck, the superintendent of water and the supervisor of distribution and collection would have one, and we would have a spare, pretty much a spare for whoever when they're working the weekend or something. And that way, if somebody had a problem, the tablets would have the GPS location and everything onto it. So that way, if you have a foot of snow or something, it would help for a quicker response time to turn the water off. So you're not trying to shovel the whole person's front yard out to find the meter too. So, and plus we have to do some stuff for the 2025 lead and copper rule. So this is going to work in effect with something else that's coming down the pike for the lead and copper rule. So I would like to have more, but I think 4 will be a good start. And, at least that'll get us started. And that way we can keep a record of, investigate meters if something's wrong with them. The laptops will be hooked to the meters too.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this is for field work. The access as far as like being able to see the flow for meters and things of that nature can be done from any internet connection.
Yes, I do believe so. I'm still learning the process of the smart meters and how the technology works. But by my understanding, anybody will just about be able to see it from sitting at home. They can watch their meter. There's some stuff we have to work out on our side, whether if we want the meters read. I know we're gonna read them gallons, but reading like once an hour, once every 15 minutes. So just think, we're not like Tim and the electric. Their meters have electric feeding to them, so they can read theirs every minute. Ours are going to be a lithium battery, so we have to be careful so we can get the best money for our buck too. So we have to limit our reading cycles too, so we don't kill the battery that's in the ground also. So it's a juggling act. We got to figure all this out in time.
Do we have an idea of how long a battery lasts?
Some of them are getting 15 years, but they're not reading, like they're reading I want to say they're probably reading like once an hour. So I think that's going to be we need to contact some towns that already have this in play and develop some ideas from them and go from there.
Well, thank you, Jamie, and I appreciate the conservative approach on the iPads. If there's no other questions, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
I have a question real quick for Gene. Gene, are you still on the call?
Yes, sir.
I don't mean to put you in the hot seat, but it's a burning question of mine. The $500,000 that Jamie, or you indicated in your slide and that Jamie brought to everyone's attention. Do you think that $500,000 is a conservative guess? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's fairly conservative. However, one caveat with that, and that is that's predicated on, in this context, it's predicated on 100% of your lost water being due to the meters.
Right.
You can't actually say that for certain, sure, but it's pretty obvious that a large portion of your loss is due to the meters. So I'm not saying you're going to save $500,000 in the first year necessarily, but you could be losing as that much in non-revenue water, whatever the source of non-revenue water. So is that a convoluted answer or what?
Is the statement I'm about to make a fair statement? With the investment with new smart meters for longevity for the infrastructure, it's a smart move. I think that's non-negotiable. But do you, in your professional opinion, do you feel that once we are at 100% replacement, we're going to see a noticeable, a sizable increase in revenue?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Now, we also, before we pull a vote, I have a hand up from Josh. I'd like to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify, these two RFPs are still, they're final drafts, but they are still in draft form. So by approving them, I can still make minor modifications like the typing errors, correcting typing errors, that kind of stuff. Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
Any substantive changes, though, would have to come back to the group. Do you see anything that stands out that?
The only thing is we're still, as part of this whole process, and the town has really taken a long, hard look at this. I know $1 million is a lot of money, and it is going to ultimately save the town a significant amount of money, but also you're getting a state-of-the-art meter reading system that's going to make everyone's job, I say easier, but really more effective, more efficient for years to come. And one of the things that these RFPs are going to reference a set of minimum technical specifications. We're going to put together a GPS-based map so that as construction progresses, we can track the work. We're putting together some details so that the contractor who's installing the meters, if they need to replace a pit along the way, they can do that. So these two RFPs are not going to have any substantial changes, but there will be technical specifications and mapping that go along with them that we're still finalizing.
Can all of those be input since they're going to be GPS driven? Can they create a layer in the GIS that's going to have all of our meters in it? Can we make that a stipulation?
Yes, and as Jamie alluded to earlier, the EPA, the federal government, has new lead and copper rule requirements that were put into effect the beginning of this year that will have to be met before 2024. And one of those things that's going to be very costly to every water supplier, every town, is a water service inventory. The town wants, or the government wants you to know where every service is, what it's made out of, what the diameter is, how deep it is. And also they want to know on the private side what the material and diameter on. This is a very costly item that not everyone is aware of, and some towns are just now finding out about. But the town of Berlin is going to have a jump start on this because of this meter project. We're going to be able to gather a lot of the information as part of this process that will help us meet those guidelines, hopefully well before the 2024 deadline.
Thank you. And I think it's also important, we talked about the employee side and the operational side, the impact with these new meters, but I think there's a lot of value add for the resident as well. You'll be able to see, as we noted, that whatever that interval is, it's going to update also on your end. So you would be able to see those flows in a consistent time frame. With that being said, if you had a leak or something of that nature, I think there's going to be an easier way to identify them. And then I see Jean has her hand up, but I want to make one more point, which is we're able to hopefully transition. And Jean, this is going to lead into you a little bit from the per 1,000 gallon billing down to the individual gallon. So those that are conserving water at home and making that conscientious effort should hopefully be rewarded with lower water bills and sewer bills. So Jean, you had your hand up.
I was just going to add to the point that you made, and that is that this type of metering enables you to identify a leak in an individual line very, very quickly, and you can avoid losing even more water through leaks. Right now, you're losing water, non-revenue water that you're not getting paid for through ad metering and who knows what else, but you will also be able to identify leaks much more quickly, and it should cut your lost water as well as your revenue significantly, or not cut your revenue, but increase your revenue. And I would expect them to pay for themselves within 3 years at the most, if not 2.
Thank you. And the town administrator, you have your hand up.
The one last tidbit snippet of information that Josh alluded to, and I think that for not only the council, but for the citizens of this town, once we get this project underway, I've asked Josh to put together a progress map, if you will. A diagram that shows, by street meters, and then on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, whatever we decide to be that interval, to be able to show the public and to show the council, from day one, when the meters arrived and the installation started, here's where we're at. Here's where we're at. So I think that for everyone that's watching, and then for every citizen, and especially for the mayor and council, you can see the progress. You can see not only you're going to know what you got for your $1 million, but you can't know where you're at as far as the installation is concerned.
Thank you. Councilmember Orris, you had your hand up.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't want to cut anybody off. I just wanted to renew my motion if there weren't any further discussion to approve draft RFP 2022-01.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Orris for RFP 2022-01. I need a second.
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Nur. Councilmember Burrell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Purnell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Nichols, how do you vote?
Aye.
So RFP 2022-01 smart meter equipment procurement passes unanimously. Up next, and kind of in the same loop, so I don't know if there needs to be any discussion, but agenda item number 5B, RFP 2022-02, the smart water meter installation.
Mayor, council, again, I don't think there's a lot of discussion unless you've got questions, but again, that would be a second RFP, seeking qualified entities to do the actual installation.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Councilmember Burrell.
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Orris. Councilmember Nur, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Nichols, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Purnell, how do you vote?
Aye.
RFP 2022-02 smart water meter installation passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And they'll be posted to our town website for anybody that's interested. Agenda item number 6 is keeping everybody still on the line. Discussion item A is water and wastewater recommendations. So our finance director, Natalie Saleh, and Jean Holloway are going to run point on this.
Okay. Natalie, do you want to start? Or you want me to start?
Jean, lead the way, please.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Well,
Okay.
Gene, hold on one second. Let's just state the problem, just to summarize for everybody. You heard during the audited financial statement presentation that our funds are not doing well in many respects, in the revenue side and the capital investment side. So the next series of presentations, agenda item 6A and 6B, are aimed to hopefully address some of that. 6A is focused on the water and the wastewater side, which gears a lot of its revenue from the meters themselves, which we were just discussing, and some of their inaccuracies. So tonight, the discussion is less about adjusting the rates of the meters themselves, but more about trying to address the capital side of the water and sewer funds. So Gene, I'll let you take it over from there.
Okay, if I could have the next slide, please. I presented some conclusions to the mayor and council in a work session on November 1st. And obviously, I don't have to reiterate this, that neither system is sustainable under the present rates and rate structure. Next bullet, please. And I'm used to running these myself. That's why they're animated this way. I apologize. But just the fact that these systems are not sustainable jeopardizes your ability to get program funding if you need improvements. If you can't self-fund a large project, you're going to have trouble getting money from any of the programs, because despite the changes in fund balance and the positive audit report, the systems are not sustainable as enterprise funds as they currently stand. Next bullet, please. Sewer system is also overloaded with debt. It's right around almost a third of your expenses go strictly to debt, which can be a problem. Next bullet. This capital reserve, it was recommended that that be established starting immediately. And that's kind of a synthesis of this, the gist of this presentation this evening. But these are all recommendations that were presented on November 1st. Next bullet, please. Next slide, okay. The water loss, as we said before, is 24.7, almost 25% of what is being produced. If you were a manufacturer, that would be the same as taking 25% of your product and throwing it in the dumpster and not getting paid back for it. And that's exacerbated when you look at sewer billing that's based on water usage, and your sewer costs about 2.9, almost 3 times as much to provide the service as the water service does. So you're looking at a significant loss just based on the present water rate. Next bullet, please. The old and insufficient meters are part of the problem, obviously. Next bullet, I think you're addressing that. Can also suggest that a water audit might be performed if you don't see as much of a decrease in lost water as you'd hoped for in the first 6 months. Then perhaps you would contract for a water audit after 6 months to a year of the new meters. And again, you can skip the next bullet because I believe the new meters are underway, obviously. Recommendations, again, were to replace the meters, and obviously that's underway. Next bullet. And then a water audit, next bullet. And then my big suggestion and the subject of tonight is to a recommended instituting interim rate measures for the remainder of fiscal 2022, which ends June 30th, and into FY23 to begin building a dedicated capital reserve, because that will not only protect you from emergencies like we saw with COVID, where revenues dropped significantly for a lot of systems, and many systems are still struggling to get out of that hole, but it will also help you to become more sustainable until such time as you can get meter readings from these new meters, know exactly what water you're putting out and how much you're getting paid for, and you can build a new rate structure around that. I guess at this point, secondary recommendation was a new rate structure, but that can be dealt with later. Tonight, I'm encouraging the building of a capital reserve. So if you could pop up the next bullet. And then there we go. For the water fund, $5 per residential EDU and $10 per commercial EDU for each building. And this would be a flat charge separately itemized on the bill, have nothing to do with usage. The sewer fund, $14.50 per residential billing, and $29 per commercial EDU per billing. And the difference is, again, your sewer service costs about 2.9 times more to run than the water service. A lot of that is debt, but that's another conversation. Next slide, please. So this is going to amount to, for before I go into the numbers, just one caution here. This is based strictly on meter size. So there may be more commercial connections than what these figures are reflecting, because you may have some commercial connections, customers who are on a 5/8 inch residential meter. Your retail stores, offices may have nothing more than a residential meter. But I base these estimates on anything of the residential meters all being, or all the 5/8 inch meters being the residential surcharge, and the larger than 5/8 inch meters being commercial. So just be aware, these are estimates. But you should see right around 13,000, almost 14,000 monthly in revenue from on the water side. And between April 1st and June 30th, when this fiscal year ends, you'll see about 41,000 total. And for fiscal year 2023, you should see about almost $165,000. And the next bullet should be the total. Total revenue for that period from April 1st through June 30th of 23 would be about 206,000 for the water system. Next, you can just pop them up, Mary. Sewer, you can see the monthly revenue would be about 40,000, 120,000 between now and the end of fiscal year 22, and then 481,000 for 2023. So by the end of this period, you need to have a significant capital reserve to both help self-fund some capital outlays, and also to build up a reserve for emergencies and contingencies, because from everything I've seen right now, your only emergency contingency fund is general fund. How much can you lend us? And that means you're not really running as an enterprise fund. So this is something that is recommended, highly recommended. And then if you could have the next slide, please. Just general conclusion, just go ahead and pop them up, Mary, it's okay. With no reserves at all, you're very vulnerable to a crisis, and that's pretty obvious. You all are moving in the right direction. But establishing these reserve funds is very critical to becoming sustainable, and that improves your credit worthiness if you do go into a program for funding. The reserves also help to support the capital improvement program that I was told has been recently adopted, or at least is under consideration. I think it's adopted.
Under consideration, a 5-year
Okay.
capital plan.
Okay, under consideration then. So these reserves certainly would support that. And I might point out that even if you qualify for a program, whether it be USDA or the Drinking Water Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, you still have certain local match to make to almost any program there is. So this money is not built up for no purpose. It's not built up just to say you have it. It's something that you may be able to use to provide the local match in the future. But installation of these smart meters is a critical part of this recommendation, because your lost water is just really, really crippling you. You're losing money hand over fist as far as that goes. Another rate study should be done once the meters are in, and I strongly suggest a restructuring of your rates, because right now your rates between residential and commercial are not totally equitable. In some cases, residential customers are paying more than their share of the costs, and in some cases the commercial are paying. So it just depends on usage and a lot of other things that I can show you in the work papers, but right now we just bore everybody silly. But your rates need to be done up in a more equitable way across the board. And then the capital reserve fund should be continued after these meters are in and after that rate structure. And if you decide you want this rate study done, CERCAP can certainly do that. And I point out, for the benefit of the public as well as the council, that CERCAP does not charge for these services. So you can you can count on us to do that. It may not be me, but there would be somebody that would be ready to do that when the time comes.
You're not allowed to retire. So,
Yeah, okay. Tell that to my husband.
tell him to call the office.
But I'm joking, but I am planning on retiring this year, but I have also been asked by CERCAP if I would do some contract work for them. So it might be me. It's hard to tell. But nevertheless, I think that's my last slide. But I just, you're on the right track. There's just more that needs to be done. And I think the smart meters is one of the best decisions you'll ever make.
And to your point, in your slide, you mentioned about $165,000 in water infrastructure revenue for the water fund. And just to put that in perspective, we were just talking about Branch Street well number 3. That's a cost of about $350,000.
Yeah.
So even with 1 year of a capital fee in place, we'd still be in the hole about $185,000. So I
Right.
think that's an important takeaway. And the other side is that in November, you mentioned some short-term items that needed to be crossed off in order to get these funds to where they need to be. Some of those were the meters. Another one is the reserve policy, which you'll see this evening, and then also this capital reserve. So I do want to thank you again for that.
Yeah. But I just one last, I strongly urge you not to give up on restructuring your rates after you have some usage figures, some accurate usage figures in place from the new meters, because I do feel that the structure needs to change, not just the level. And in some cases, people's bills might even go down. But it's just almost impossible to really quantify what the rate needs to be when you're losing that much water. So,
and to your point, your recommendation, if I understand that correctly, is 6 months of full installation of the meters and full billing cycles before we reassess that. Is that accurate?
a minimum of 6 months, and that's if the 6 months is fairly representational of the water use. I prefer when I'm doing a rate study to have 12 months, but if you don't want to wait that long, you can extrapolate from 6 months.
Thank you. Now I'll open the floor up to the council for any questions or comments or suggestions.
I just wanted to kind of echo what the mayor said and thank you, Gene, for this. It's been really informative for me the past couple of months. And these recommendations, I know this is a discussion, are very, very good. And if you remember back in November, I think we mentioned that this is a multi-year task. And I'm very excited that we're moving on with the smart meters, because I think that's going to put us, reiterating what you've already said, put us in a better position to decide on rate and structure. So thank you.
My pleasure. Excuse me.
Hey, I'd love to see us move forward with this.
And when you say this, are you talking about the capital
Rate study.
recommend? Well, I think this evening is more or less, Gene, correct me if I'm wrong, if we could get back to that slide that references the capital fee that so Gene broke out her report. If we go back to the stuff from November, it's another slide, go back to the previous one. Let me say that one right there. So in Jean's report, she broke it down into like short-term things that need to happen and then long-term things that need to happen. So the short-term list was the meters, which we're addressing, the reserve fund, which we're addressing, and then the capital fee, which is what Jean's discussing this evening. And it's being recommended that we need to start establishing that capital fee because we have nothing in our funds at this present moment.
And I would suggest that you start it at the first available quarter, which is probably April 1st. But you right now you have no cushion, none whatever. So it's really important to get this established, and the sooner the better.
Yeah, the reports from PKS certainly show the writing on the wall.
And you're also, I won't say making up for lost time, but it's something that maybe if it had been done a little by some of your predecessors, then you wouldn't be in this position now. Let's put it that way. Going back to my own tenure for that matter.
Well, the important part is that we can't really live in that perspective all the time. Right now, we have to focus with the task at hand, which is we do have our water, sewer, and stormwater funds that are not in a good position. And part of that is that in the event that we have a well fail, we really don't have that funding available to be able to pull from to fix it, or the ability to go to the market and borrow money. So we have to fix that problem.
I agree 100%.
So with that being said, this is a discussion item this evening. As Gene noted, the recommendation is to move forward with a water fund and a sewer fund capital fee that you see before you as soon as possible. And the recommendation from our third party, CERCAP, is to do that at the start of the next quarter, which would be April 1st, 2022 billing. So we can either pick that up this evening, or it can be in the form of a formal motion in February.
I have two questions. Number one, Mr. Mayor, are you in favor of these rate increases?
Well, I mean, everybody knows that I don't like to see fees go up or taxes go up. But the thing is that when we're looking at the duty and the obligation of these funds, right, they need to break even. And right now they're not doing that. And it's an obligation that the funds have. It's an obligation that we have as the managers of those funds. So as much as it pains me to see, yeah, we have no real other choice than to start establishing a capital reserve.
Well, I agree with you 100%. We need to write these funds. We need to get them in a better financial position. However, with all the inflationary prices that are happening around us in every sector, food, clothing, whatever you buy, the prices are going up. And you throw this on top of it, I think it's a bit much. I would recommend that if we do this, that we start it with our fiscal year in the next budget cycle.
And this is a discussion, so I really do want to hear.
Go ahead, Zach.
I really do want to hear from each one of you, and I know Jean's got her hand up, but I'd like to get the take of the council for a moment.
I think we've been kicking this can down the road. I've been saying it for a long time. We've got to break even. We are a nonprofit corporation. Not just to make money, but we're supposed to pay for the service that we render. And there's only one way to do that.
And
PKS
I'm just asking for 6 months of reprieve here, till we start this. We don't know where inflation is going to take us in the next few months, but it is getting out of control. And so we just have to be aware of that.
And I see Councilmember Orris, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Councilmember Nur here, and also I understand the severity of this and the recommendation. However, we don't even have the new meters in. I think that we should kind of, I don't agree that it's necessarily kicking the can down the road, but one step at a time here.
And Councilmember Burrell, you have your hand up.
Yes, so I did it right, huh?
You did it correct. Yes, you get an A+. Sunday school, you're gonna be able to teach all those little ones something.
I really would. I understand the need. I understand the need for these fees, and I understand how necessary it is to have these funds self-supporting. But I wouldn't want to move forward with this until we heard from the public.
Thank you. Councilmember Nichols? We can't hear you. I think you're muted.
I get a C for that one, don't I?
It's okay. Dean will give you a class.
I was agreeing with Councilmember Burrell because he said it before I could get it out. Gina, I appreciate everything you did, and I don't want you to see this as us not listening or heeding your warnings, but I'm a little apprehensive on moving forward with this today without hearing what the citizens of the town think about this. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know it has to be done. It definitely does. But the question at this rate, at this juncture is today or 6 months from now. So, you know what I mean? I'd much rather, before I tack this on, want to hear what they have to say.
Now, Jean, you had your hand up.
No, I took it back down because it really isn't my meeting or my discussion. I just would point out one thing, that your other alternative, or another alternative as I see it, is to go up significantly on your user rates in order to make up this deficit. And my calculations initially were that your user rates would have to go up by probably $2 or $3 a thousand, and your minimum bill is not nearly enough to cover your debt service. So that is something that, you know, you'll want to think about.
And I'd like to throw something else. Well, go ahead. Let's let our finance director weigh in, and then I'll speak my 2 cents.
Just a couple of things to clarify. So the fees that we were talking, this is to Councilman Orris, they're very separate from the rates. The meter installation and the meter process is totally separate project and totally separate process. Service charges and rates fees are belong to actually services for the water use. Those fees are established as a capital fee. They're fixed. It does not matter how much person or commercial property will use the water in gallons. Proceeding with the fee, we would establish that into a special capital reserve account and would hold that for capital improvements only, where the service charges basically helped operate the entire fund. So there's a couple of things. Secondly, we've discussed that for a very long time. I understand the burden and the situation right as of today, but with all due respect, 6 months down the road, we probably will be in the same or even a little bit worse situation as of right now. You can tell from our audit presentation, we need to improve the funds today and not to wait for another 6 months. So I would just ask and recommend that we proceed with establishing those fees to help the funds, to start establishing the capital cushion as been referred in recommendations by Jean. Thank you.
Thank you. And what I'm hearing in consensus, what it seems from the council, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the public's facing a lot of pressures right now already. Fiscal pressures like inflation, the reassessments, things of that nature. So costs are going up, and I completely understand that. But this isn't a new problem within our funds either. And I mentioned this a little bit during our FY22 budget process. And that was that at the time, my recommendation was to not pursue a tax increase, but rather to address the issues that we have currently facing us, which are the enterprise funds. They've been stressed by our auditors. They've been stressed by independent parties like SIRCAP. They've been echoed time and time again by our finance director. So the thing is that we have funds that are in distress that need to be fixed, and we have a duty and an obligation to fix them. What I would like to do is we'll take this back to the drawing board, and I would like to see if maybe we can provide like a rebate or refund on some of the taxes that we've levied this cycle in lieu of fixing the real problem, which is the water and sewer fund. And with that being said, maybe we go back looking at our reassessments that have just come in the mail to everybody. And we say, hey, look, let's roll that tax rate back a little bit and address the real problem, which is here in our water and sewer and stormwater funds. So we'll take this back to the drawing board, but I think there are ways that we can balance this out for the customer and the citizen of Berlin while not making things worse. So. So Jean, I'd like to thank you. Natalie, I'd like to thank you as well. And council members, if you have any ideas that we're overlooking that we can do to possibly fix this issue, please let us know. And like I said, in February, we'll be coming back with hopefully a tangible plan to get us where we need to be. Let's see here. Let's move on to agenda item 6B, which is our stormwater utility adjustments, and our finance director and Darrell from EA are going to run point on this.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. I believe I'm slated to start this off, and but Natalie will certainly support. A lot of this presentation was presented almost a couple years ago in terms of the stormwater utility. So this isn't a new topic either in terms of the need for some evaluation and some potential adjustment for the utility. So this slide is more historic, but it's worth going over. So, you know, the utility's been around since 2013. And the terminology, so for the equivalent residential unit or ERU is based on an assumed value of 2,100 square feet of impervious surface. And that term is used more on the commercial side. You know, each of the residents, they're all assumed at one ERU. So one ERU right now, the fee is $50 per ERU, and then for a non-residential or commercial is $25 per ERU. And it's also worth stating, you know, the University of Maryland Environmental Finance Center did a rate study and evaluation for this, and their initial recommendation was actually for the residential to be 50 as well as the non-residential. So the initial, and then, you know, in the first year, the general funds supplemented a little bit to get it kick-started. So, you know, initially this fund had about, or revision had about $570,000 in revenue. You can go to the next slide. So, like I said, the stormwater, as it kicked off, had some funds, and it was substantially supported through grants. We had, you know, that initial balance in there, and we showed a very strong grant applications and leveraged funds. But as of recent, the stormwater utility has had a negative change in net position for the last several years. So to summarize this presentation, you know, we really need an adjustment of the current fee structure to be a healthy fund. And it's a negative. It's been in a negative for several years. And if we really need to, one, get it into positive, and then so we can actually start to allocate and a fund for capital projects. Next slide. I think I'm gonna hand this over to Natalie for a little bit.
So this is just a repetitive snapshot of what the stormwater fund looks like for the past 3 years. And as PKS and company, Leslie have mentioned in the presentation, it's closing its year on the negative with an operating loss for fiscal 21 of 101, and 2020 was a little bit less. We had a little bit of grant monies in the past year. Unfortunately, 2021 wasn't successful, and because of the overall financial health of the fund, we cannot kind of sustain it. And she also mentioned that it owes back to the general fund of 192,000. We don't want to repeat the steps and just let it roll for several years where this number is going to grow, and then we're going to face that general fund is kind of subsidizing the stormwater fund. Stormwater fund is business fund. It should operate with a profit and should be sustainable, operate at even or even break even, or possibly for profit, so we can have a little bit set aside for capital project maintenance of the ditches and supporting the contracted services, and fully cover the operational costs of the personnel, and also have a capital set aside to have the projects going forward to be finished or initiated to be completed. So just basically, as you can see, the service charges and revenues does not support the capital projects and operational cost. You can go to the next slide.
So this is, again, it's a repetitive slide from a couple of presentations. You know, the four big areas that we really need to address in terms of stormwater management. We need to finish what we started over in Nelson, Franklin, and Pine. Then we have dire needs in Henry's Mill and Henry's Green and West Street and Abbey Lane. The Hudson Branch and Bay Street is not so much a dire need for nuisance flooding, but there is some key interest in the heart and trunk line of our sanitary sewer across the Hudson Branch that it's exposed. And there's some significant erosion in that area that over time, you know, that really needs to be our priority. In another topic, you know, we're working with Coastal Base to come up with a plan to seek funding for that project. We can go to the next slide. So from a historical standpoint, tremendous success. I mean, we've accomplished quite a bit. You know, $2.25 million of, I think it might be my slides might be on automated, Mary, I don't know. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we've done quite a bit, but we have quite a bit to do. Now, funding in the past, we've had success with, you know, pipe improvements and culverts and stuff like that. Now the funding is really nature and natural based. They want to see a very heavy water quality component, which is the submerged gravel wetlands, the bioswales and stuff like that, which we can incorporate as part of these projects, but they're not the significant need that is present with these areas. We need significant water quantity management. We can go to the next slide. So in terms of an adjustment for consideration, the current stormwater utility fee for the resident is $50 a year. It's proposing to start or convert that to $100 a year. I think that's roughly $4 and some change to $8 and some change a month for the residential. And based on the fiscal year 21's residential revenue, that increase or that adjustment would result in a revenue increase of about a little over 75,000. On the non-residential or commercial side, the current is $25 per ERU. Keep in mind, again, it's the non-residential are calculated per 2,100 square feet of impervious or ERU. So the proposition is to go to adjust that from 25 to 35 per ERU, but really keep a minimum of $50 a year. There's, you know, several properties that would be under that minimum, and that would, similar to the residential, result in an additional revenue of approximately $42,000. We can go to the next slide. So what does this mean in terms of the non-residential and impact? So I broke it up into 3 tiers. The lower tier really falls with your minimum of 1 ERU. Now that would be just adjusted. It's not stated here, but it's stated on an earlier slide of the $50 per year. So they would essentially go similar to residential paying now, going from $25 to $50 per year. The mid-level tier is really, I mean, of the 340 non-residential properties, this is the bulk of it. So if I average that out, it's a little under $11 a month. That would result in this adjustment. And then the highest tier, there's really an outlier. I mean, it's the Board of Education, the highest by over the twofold impact would be $227 a month. Then the next 4 highest range from $103 to $137 a month. Just pointing them out in tiers. The highest tier is on the extreme end. The primary heart of it is that middle layer of about 236 or so in that mid-level tier. Next slide. I think this might be my last. So in terms of what the goals of the utility, we've really got to get back to a positive working fund. So in short term, we have to improve the financial position of our fund. But there's still things that we can keep doing and ramp up, you know, with the maintenance and Jamie and the staff and public works. We can develop a systematic plan for ditch maintenance, pipe videoing, stormwater jetting. We can, you know, we can ramp that up and still make that a goal to help, you know, relieve some of the nuisance flooding. And once we get this established, it's really similar to what we discussions with the water and sewer. Start allocating funds for capital projects. So once you get it into the positive, then we can start accumulating funds to do these projects. And then that just turns into the long-term fund. Establish positive working capital balance. And then it really strengthens the position of grant applications and leverage funds. You know, anywhere between 10 and 20% is what we've gotten feedback for grant applications. And so when we're talking about, you know, $500,000 to $1 million projects, we really need to get some capital in the fund to be able to leverage funds and apply for grant applications. And I think that's my last slide. Yep. I don't know, anything, Natalie, do you want to add, or we can hand it over to the mayor?
Just to add that it's been discussed for over a year, and the proposal kind of been drafted and discussed over and over again. So just to initiate the importance of establishing the stormwater and bringing it to the positive operational values and the financial health of the fund. It cannot operate on the negative. It's been in negative, and we just have to fix the fees here to make sure there is enough revenues going into the fund to do the projects and to sustain the operations. The difference between this structure of the rates, it is a service fee. It's assessed on the monthly basis. The difference, it's a fixed residential and multiplier for the commercial. Just to clarify. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mary, can you go back? Can you go back to where Darrell depicts what we've spent? What has been spent? Keep going, please. Keep going. Right there. One more. Right there. So what I'd like for everybody to get out of this, please, if you take a look at the completed stormwater improvement project since the inception, we've go back, please. We have spent, $2.3 million. I guess the question that I have for Natalie, if she can help us out here, that $2.3 million, that's come from multiple sources, but if you have the figure readily available, Natalie, I'd appreciate it. What has been spent out of the town coffers pockets out of that $2.3 million?
I would have to get back to you with this number. I can tell that it was the matching for several grants, but it wasn't definitely not the same amount. It's not even 50-50, but 2.2 was grant money. And some of the grants required the funds to be spent first and then work as reimbursements, and some of them had a matching amount. So I can calculate that and email it later. I don't have the number.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, Jeff, I can offer an estimate. I mean, I would defer to Natalie to calculate that, but I would estimate about 25%,
25% from the town and the 75% from grants?
Roughly.
Roughly. So is it a fair statement to say that, bear with my math, $600,000 from the town and $1.8 million from grant money? So is it a fair statement to say that this utility has well paid for itself?
Well, I know we've in total grants, came to almost 2 million. So we've had tremendous success.
And I gotta say that, since the way we did this, if we didn't come up with any money, we did not gotten any of those grants. I mean, I think what we leveraged with these fees has done, I think it's less than 25%, but I'll put my arm in the guillotine.
Don't go that far, Troy. Don't put your arm in a guillotine, pal.
Oh, I didn't realize I was muted. I'm sorry. Councilmember Orris, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so if we did 25% of town and 75, I know those are rough, 75 was grants, that was while this utility has not been in good shape, correct?
Natalie, you can help me out, but I would say that was primary.
So from the
case.
beginning, the original setup, as Darrell mentioned in the presentation, there was a permanent general fund transfers to support the actual initial projects. We started with 350 and it was slowly going down until we reduced it to 50. For the past 3 years, we have not transferred any monies from the general fund because enterprise fund has to operate on its own. General fund cannot subsidize it. And that resulted in losses. Obviously, that's what we have right now as what we're trying to discuss and increase the fees to bring the fund to operate in a positive.
So in 2013, when this was formed, what I'm asking for some historical background here. What was the thought of, if it was initially created on the back of the general fund via grant, how would we sustain this? What was the plan?
Hold on, let me ask that we press the pause button on this just for a moment. Go to the slide. I believe it's one of the first few that Darrell had up, and it references both ERUs being at 50 right there. So I think that this might aid in the answering of the question. So go ahead, Councilmember Orris.
Well, I mean, okay. But did I also hear that a price went down, or did I not hear that? Was it originally all 50 and then we dropped to 25?
So the initial recommendation was that, and this was done by the University of Maryland, correct, Darrell and Natalie?
Yes. Yes.
And that report is available for anybody that would like it. But the original analysis said that the residential ERU should be at $50 and the commercial or non-residential rate should be at $50. And that the general fund would contribute, to Natalie's point, $300,000 a year. So what has happened over a series of many years is that, well, the initial start was $50 for the ERU for the resident, $25 for the ERU for the non-resident. And the general fund was contributing the 300, but over the past, Natalie explained that it has decreased to no contribution from the
There
general
was a
fund.
gradual decrease. It started with the highest, and then we went to 150, then went to 100, and then we went to 50, and we stopped. Just for the purpose of, like I mentioned in the past, we cannot subsidize it. So I guess what I hear, the question is, the fee for ERU commercial changed. Yes, it did, because calculations were taken into consideration that so many commercials, because of the large square footage, were multiple ERUs that would bring the 50 to a very, very high amount. So the decision was to reduce it to half of the residential for commercial, and that kind of was on the scale to be fair between how many ERUs each property carries that.
Yes, I can offer one thing of clarification. I believe the finance report did not, really include a general fund contribution. I think that the general fund contribution was a initial consideration because the non-residential would have been substantial. The $50 per ERU for the commercial I mean, that would have, I think that was where the main gap was. We wanted the mayor and council and the town decided to initially fund it with that.
So does this 192,000 that is owed to ourselves part of this initial 300,000?
No, the 192,000, that's what happened in the past 3 years. Basically, the fund is not closing in the positive. And to close the fund on the break-even point, the first thing it's looking into a neighbor fund to grab the balance. So the past couple of years, to be specific, 3 years, the stormwater has to close in positive. So it created this negative balance. It's pretty much this, it's playing the same scenario as the sewer fund in the past. So it is a just interfund transfers to bring the fund to positive. That's why it's very important to have a positive net position at the end of the fiscal year.
And that's when we were going back to the audit, like Natalie's saying, the amount that you saw written down, that 1.6 or so million dollars, that was allowing that fund to continue to rack up an owed amount to the general fund, which is in essence what's occurring and what we cannot have and continue to occur in the stormwater fund.
And one of the biggest items to consider is when you go to the bank, apply for a loan, you show them you're losing money, they don't want to loan it to you. So you got to at least have your enterprise fund breaking even if you want to go get these grants and loans.
And that's a great point, Councilmember Purnell. The thing is that, like Councilmember Purnell said, we can't apply for loans, but we also are not in a favorable position to apply for grants. So many of the priorities that we've set around stormwater really can't be accomplished until we can right the ship. Your hands up, Councilmember Morris.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to belabor the point, but I guess I'm just a little confused on how it's been doing so poorly, yet we've still been able to get grants. And I'm hearing then it's because the general fund subsidized it to put up to get the grants. Is that correct?
From the beginning, yes.
Okay,
So-
thank you. I'm done with my.
So if we could, let's go back. I think it's to number 38 down in the bottom right corner of Darrell's presentation. Or actually go back a couple, if you don't mind, to the map. I do want to note that many of the priorities that many of you have identified within your districts are priority projects here on the stormwater map as well. So then let's go to number 38. Here, I think, let's see, maybe it's 39 if you don't mind. So to Darrell's point, when we start looking at this low, mid, and high tier, right? So when you look at the residential rate and you see that it's going to have to go from 50 to 100, right, for the ERU, you think, man, that's a heavy burden for the resident to pay, like doubling the fee, right? But to Darrell's point, it equates to about $4 to $8 for the customer. I think it's closer to the $4 range, if I'm not mistaken.
Mayor, $4.16. It's been billed monthly, so it would go to $8.32.
Thank you. So to the finance director's point, less than $5, right? And our low tier consumer is paying less than the resident. So a problem that we would need to rectify in this, and that's why it's a discussion item, is how do we get that low tier customer to pay the equitable rate that a resident's paying, right? Because when you think about the stormwater fund in its entirety, typically a resident has some green space to allow some of that water to run off. Whereas the ERU is calculated on what, a little over 2,000 square feet of impervious surface. So impervious does not allow water to drain. So it does have some impact. So I think we need to find a way that we can address that low tier customer to make the rates equitable to the resident. The mid tier, you'll see that even though there's a slight adjustment upward, you're still looking at well over double what we're asking or would be seeking from the residential side. And then in the high tier, you're once again looking at a higher rate than what the resident's going to pay. So I wanted to at least stress that point to everyone. Let's see. I think that's it. I'd like to hear from each one of the council members, please. So I've heard from Councilmember Orris. We can take this roundtable.
So wait a minute. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. But you said the non-resident is at $25, and I see that. But if I'm understanding Darrell correctly, they're at $25 per ERU because they have multiple ERUs. Is that correct? Is that why they're at 25?
Yeah, the non-residential or commercial is a straight calculation of $25 per ERU.
So are most of these commercials, is it true to assume, I don't want to assume, but that most of these residents or these commercials have more than one ERU?
Yes, let's see, I would say, I did a little quick calc. I came up with about 34 non-residential would meet that minimum. But if it were, the minimum of 50, then that goes up because you're two. So it goes up to about 85 of those would be under the minimum.
Okay, so that's why they're at the 25 currently, but as the mayor stating, we need to get that to a place where it's more than what the resident is paying, or at least comparable to what the resident is paying, right?
You would want it to be equitable. So you want at least everybody to be on the same level minimum playing field.
I hear you. I mean, I'm not disputing that. I was just trying to figure out how we got, just making sure that we were clear, not just myself, but those that are listening were clear as to why it was 25, because those people or the commercial had more than one. And that's how you got to that 25. That's how you concluded the 25, right?
No, actually, I think that we're getting a little, we're talking about a lot of different numbers here. So I believe that Darrell's recommendation and that of the finance director would be to not keep it at the 25 rate.
No. I'm not talking about the recommendation. I'm just talking about where we are currently so that we can look towards the recommendation. I was trying to make sure that was crystal clear.
Okay, then that is correct. That at 25 currently, the low tier is paying, I believe there are some low tier customers paying less than the residential rate.
Right.
All right, let's see who's next on my screen. Councilmember Nur, you're up.
Okay, one question, why is it non-residential? Shouldn't that just be titled commercial? Because that's what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, it should be.
Anyways, so
we've used
They're
that.
commercial. In the system, they're labeled as a commercial. It's just for the presentation, non-residential, because there are different types of commercial properties.
Right, it seems like non-residential is a confusing term to someone looking at this from the outside,
We can change that in motion.
So here's where I'm at. You're asking for an increase in the water rates, and now you're asking for an increase in the stormwater rates. So again, you're hitting people hard, and you want to do this right away. And I understand the need to write these funds and make them solvent, but I think we should be doing this at the start of our next fiscal year, not immediately. We need to see where this inflation is going. I just feel bad for people that, every time they go to the grocery store, they're paying so much more. Every time they go to buy anything, they're paying so much more. And to hit them up with this right now, it's a lot. And you make it sound like, well, it's only $5 a month, $10 a month, but it adds up. And it's just, in my opinion, wrong. I can't support doing this for the immediate term. I can look at it when we renew the budget, but not right now. It's too much of a hit to our residents.
Thank you. Councilmember Brunel.
You guys heard from me. We've been talking about this for a long time. And if you don't plan to break even, we've been hearing this from our expert financial advisors, our staff for a long time. And if we just want to say no, because it's not, people aren't going to like it, it's not the right thing to do. We got to break these funds have to break even. We've leveraged so much out of this fund. And I was a naysayer. Day one, no. But after I saw by putting up some of our funds, by establishing these fees, it was exponential the amount of money we got for grants. And you see, look around town, like you said earlier, you see some of these good projects, and I think things got to break even for us to be in a good position to go get some more. And there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And I'd much rather get it out of a grant than the taxpayers. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Councilmember Nichols, anything to add?
I'm all about seeking the grant funding. I think, with the position that we're in these enterprise funds, grants are going to be, sorry if you hear my dogs barking, but grants are going to be one of those things that may be a saving grace for us. But I don't know how I feel. Well, I'm mixed. I'll say I have mixed emotions on putting us in a position where the matching funds or the cleared funds are coming out to the taxpayer today versus, I don't know. I mean, I don't know when we should start this. Honestly, I truly don't.
Councilmember Burrell?
My position remains the same. I really would not want to proceed without hearing from the public. And when hearing from the public, the conversation can go both ways. I would like to give the public the opportunity to share their opinions and to come with the knowledge and understanding of the situation of these funds that we have. So I just think we need to hear from the public.
Thank you. I see that we have the town administrator's hand up, but I do want to address some of the things that I've heard. And I have to agree with changing the non-resident to commercial. I think that's a really good idea on the presentation side. And I hear this theme of like too much of a hit to the resident. And I agree. Anytime that we have to go to the resident and say, hey, look, we need a little bit more money for the public service of this fund. I don't like to do that. But we have heard from our auditors and from our finance director and from Darrell that there's a basic obligation with the fund to at least break even. And that's not happening. So before we can even start, now a portion of this could go to starting to handle and put ourselves in a better financial position for grants and loans and things of that nature. But before we can even get there, we have to break even. Otherwise, it's just going to continue. And I know that many of you say that and have talked about the sizable, non-spendable amount within our audit, right? And to that point, with every day that we don't address this, we're just adding to that non-spendable amount, which is owed to the general fund and the taxpayer ultimately. And I want to make sure it's very clear to everyone that I don't think that $5 is just $5. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think every dollar counts. And I do think that whenever we go to the resident or the customer to say, hey, the service requires more money, we need to show the reason that fund needs more money or that we need more money from the general fund. And then we also need to show where that money is going to go and what projects are going to be accomplished with that. So with that being said, I don't think it's just $5, and I know every dollar does count. The other thing is that I think hearing from the public is a good idea, but we also have to weigh the professional input that we're getting from the third parties like Darrell and from our accountants. I mean, those are very crucial perspectives on the financial position of the town. So with that being said, I'd like to go to the town administrator and then we'll go to Councilmember Orris.
Well, Mayor, you kind of hit the nail on the head with what I wanted to say. I mean, the reality on something is we're going backwards with this fund. I mean, it's compounding and compounding. And obviously, the more that we take away from the general fund contribution, the further backwards we go. I too echo that, a dollar, 10 $1 bills make $10, and we can compound that and keep on going. So it is important, but I also think that we need to look at, as you clearly stated, we need to look at the overall state of the fund, the health of the fund, and then take a look at what we've gotten in the past. I mean, this is not an easy decision for anyone, and I respect each and every one of the council members and what they said, and I respect what the citizens of this town have to say about this. But the reality is, we have a fund; it's got to be funded, and we've got to stop the bleed.
Thank you. Councilmember Orris.
Well, I thought I was done, but just real quick here, if it's decided to go with the suggested rate increases, and just some quick math, that doesn't even cover the debt that's owed.
What are you saying? I don't
Well,
know what math you have.
Well, if we use the estimated additional revenue on slide 6
Can
of,
we go to that if you don't mind?
sure.
Do you have the slide number there at the bottom?
So the calculation of additional revenues and increase on the rates are not to actually repay the debt. Is to operate the fund in a break even or positive to stop the borrowing. The plan could be set up in 3 to 5 years of a small amount repayments if it's possible. If it's not, just like a permanent transfer in the past, that could be discussed on the later fees. So the increase is not to repay the interfund borrowing, just to clarify.
And I think you're right here at this slide, Mary, if you don't mind. So Councilmember Orris, if you look at this, and these are all discussion items, but if you look at the residential and the non-residential, or the commercial, as we're going to call it, you'd be looking at an increase of $75,400 for the residential side, estimated an additional increase of $42,000. Really, it would be a little higher than that because of the adjustment of those minimum bills.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if we're trying to stop the bleeding, we still have debt to pay.
Well, let's go back
Right.
to the financial slide from Natalie, if you don't mind. So,
You lost 100 last year, and you're going to pick up another 120.
mhm.
There you
That's the
go.
point.
It's
So-
balanced.
It would balance the fund, and it would also put us in a position where we could start to put some of that money off to the side for capital. But I think that I'll let Natalie go through this slide a little bit more, but you can see that, to Councilmember Purnell's point, it would stop the, as the town administrator said, stop the bleed from,
So yeah, the increase of the fees are not to repay the interfund borrowing. The fees increase is to fix the enterprise fund itself and the operating loss. The change in the net position cannot be negative going forward.
Okay, thank you.
and the other side of that is, Natalie, I don't think it was in this fiscal year, but I think it was in the last fiscal year. There was a allocation to hopefully repay a portion or begin a repayment portion to the stormwater fund. Is that correct?
Yes. So
And-
hopefully that small amount will continue being possible to go forward to close that interfund borrowing. But the main short goal is to establish a positive flow so that operating loss of 101 will go away.
And the other side of that too is that when that was included in the fiscal year budget, not in 2022, but I think in 2021, if my memory serves me correct, we couldn't accomplish that because, as you can see here, I mean, the fund's not capable of even breaking even, yet alone repaying that debt service. Well, not
And
necessarily.
additionally, we don't have any capital cushion to proceed with the projects as well. So ideally, it would be to set a small nominal amount aside to establish a capital reserve where we can leverage some of the grants or perform a small capital project just to go forward on a good start.
Thank you. Councilmember Nick, oh, sorry, Nichols, you have your hand up.
There I go. So I had a question, just throwing it out here. So if we were to do something, if we were to possibly institute these increases or rate changes or what have you, say April 1, which is what's suggested, would it be possible to offer options? Like, you know, if for the families or the people who chose to pay up front, could they do it at a discounted rate and make payment arrangements or something, set up some kind of plan for those who couldn't pay up, you know what I mean? Who couldn't do could we do some kind of, I don't know how you'd even set that up.
Well, I think the important distinction, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that you wouldn't want people to pay the $100 right off the bat. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I'm asking, I mean, if they chose to pay it up front, could there be like, I don't know, a 5% or 1% discount if you did it all up front? Or if you had to do it, and I know that may defeat the purpose here, but you're getting it. You know what I'm saying? So you're giving an option here. Either I pay it all up front and I get 1% off, or I'm making some kind of payment arrangement so that I can get that paid however, you know what I mean, in a timely fashion or whatever.
What I would say is that I think that your idea is nice in theory, but the thing is that it's billed with the monthly bills, and that if you took that away, right, you would be exerting more labor costs than you would be saving with the discount. So I think we would just be shifting the subsidy, right? So
I hear you. I mean, it's a thought.
So no, it's a good idea, but I think that would cause us to just change the subsidy. Councilmember Nur?
Sure, I just had a question for Natalie. I see depreciation has increased every year. Are we adding capital assets to this utility? What's going on there?
So the last year is 2020, where we added the capital assets for the remainder of the grant. And all the assets on the books depreciated straight line over 20 years. So that 156 will probably remain within 156 unless we finish another capital project.
Thank you.
All right, well, if there's not any more discussion, I would like to move on to the next agenda item and thank Darrell and Natalie for their assistance with this presentation. All right, thank you. Agenda item number 7 is the introduction of the Enterprise Fund Reserve Policy, and that's our Finance Director, Natalie Slay, is running point on that.
Before we move on, Mayor, I would just like to say I would like to have an opportunity to set up to solicit citizen input to both of the topics we have discussed previously.
Thank you. And to that point, I think that's a great idea. And I've noted it here that I would like to do that when we're open to the public. And I'm hoping that with the way that these numbers are trending, that will be our meeting in February. I know it's Valentine's Day, but I hope everybody loves us enough that they'll come and see us. That maybe we can have that session first thing on our agenda on the 14th. But to that point, I'm also going to work with Natalie, Darrell, SIRCAP, Gene Holloway, and our town administrator to see what we can put pen to paper in the form of a formal recommendation for the council to take a look at for the February meeting. That way we have something to base the public discussion on. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To add to the comment just right now, on February 14th, we were discussing the general fund capital projects, but going into, I'm I'm looking at the schedule, just a moment. We had a work session set up to discuss capital projects for enterprise funds. Thinking of that, just looking is how much capital projects and how much capital need we have going to fiscal 23. We can open via Zoom a discussion and create a small session to discuss potential fees as presented. That's just a thought.
That's an idea, but I think that also the sense is what I'm hearing from many of our third parties and from you as the finance director is that we and our auditors is that we really just can't let this linger for too much longer. So I do want to make sure that on the 14th we can continue this discussion while it's fresh in everyone's minds. And if we have to do it via Zoom, to the finance director's point, we will do that. But my goal is to hopefully have that in person. So let's move on with agenda item number 7, if we can.
And Mayor, I'll take a point on this, please, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yes, please.
Okay. So what you have in front of you, Mary, can you go to the next slide? Oh, I guess we don't have it in there. So hopefully everyone has a copy of the resolution for the establishment of a reserve policy for the enterprise fund. It is a 3-page document. If you think back to March of 2021, that was the night that we adopted the reserve policy for the general fund. So there's a lot of similarities to the enterprise fund versus the general fund. So I just want to highlight, and I need for everyone to go to page 2 of the proposed policy. Page 2 talks at the top. We've broken this down into 3 categories and trying to give the policy some overall structure. We've broken it down into 3 categories: a capital reserve, a debt reserve, and a utility stabilization reserve. And to make it simple, the latter of those 3 buckets, the utility stabilization, that would be funded by excess of revenues only. Debt service, that would come from special connection fees. And then the capital reserve, I think we beat it to death here, especially with stormwater and water and sewer. That would be the capital fees that we've discussed on the onset. So with a capital reserve, again, the target balances, that's what they are. They're target balances. So a capital reserve would be equal to or greater than 1 fiscal year of capital projects. A debt service would be, again, equal to or greater than 1 year of the enterprise debt service. And then the utility stabilization reserve, that would be equal to or greater than 90 days of the targeted operating expenses. Natalie, you want to fill in the blanks?
I'm just going to give a couple of more details here. So I guess the question, so why do we need this? Why are we doing this? Jeff mentioned to have that structure to help the funds to operate and to have assurance that we will not interrupt the services, we will not fail on the capital projects, and we will have something in place as the security blanket to go for the future capital improvements and purchases of the assets. Just to remind, the enterprise funds is a business type activity. It is not supposed to be subsidized, is not supposed to have transfers from the general fund. To have each fund operate and maintain positive unrestricted balance, which is the net position at the end of the year, will help us to cover those unplanned shortfalls of the revenues and economic downfalls and protect us from the reduction of the services. So the capital reserve, Jeff mentioned, it could be funded through excess of the revenues. Also, specifically for water sewer funds, we are proposing to establish the capital fee, which will be allocated to that separate account, stay for that particular purpose. It will not be utilized for operational purposes. Also, the EDU special fee that we have in place would play a role to fulfill that 1 year of balance as will be adopted in the capital plan for the enterprise funds. The debt reserve, pretty much similar. It's principal, interest, debt service for 1 year for each fund if we have any debt in the fund. The utility stabilization is a security blanket, what I call, if something runs down unpredictably, broke down, disaster happens, we have that 90 days of operating expenses. We don't have to break the service. We don't have to dip in specific reserve. Or if we have a capital reserve pretty much depleted, expensed due to some unforeseen circumstances, the utility stabilization can come in place and help us with that particular balance. Do we need to have all of them separately? I would like to have them as a structure of a total amount per fund, but knowing which amount belong to which. With electric, I want to mention it will be a little bit different. We will have to go for a rate study probably later on. We will have to get approved to have a reserve for electric because it's regulated by Public Service Commission. Again, those are targets. Those are goals to move forward to achieve those balances and help enterprise funds to be independent and well-positioned financially. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will note that on page 2 of the draft, the utility stabilization reserve, our auditors mentioned this evening that the minimum recommendation is 45 days. You will see that our recommendation is to double that at 90 days of the operation costs. So this is an introduction, so we're not looking, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not looking for a formal motion or vote this evening. Is that correct?
Not today, then. Yes,
Correct.
that's introduction.
Correct.
Discussion
And then-
only.
That's in February, right? And then with that being said, if there's any comment or adjustments that the council sees, if you could let us know either tonight or before our next meeting, that would be great. All right. Let's see. Thank you, Natalie and Jeff, for your work on that. Let's see, do we have the fire company with us?
Yes, Dave Fitzgerald, President, and Chief RJ Rhodes.
Thank you both for joining us. So agenda item number 8 is the Berlin Fire Company and Berlin EMS quarterly presentation. Thank you both for being with us, and go ahead with your presentation.
The chief asked me, just since we're on Zoom, just so we're not jumping back and forth, to go ahead and read, but he's here for questions right next to me. So the fire company quarterly report, October 1 to December 31st. We get the next slide, please. And the next slide after that, please. So for that quarter, we had 49 in-town fire responses, which is about half of the calls, 49.5%, and out of town is the balance at 50. Next slide, please. The busiest days for the fire and rescue is Wednesday and then followed by Sunday. Busiest times of day are the afternoon, 3 to 4, followed by 12 to 1. That's important to point out again about the busiest times of the day. That's when most of our volunteers are at work, and that's the importance of us having the 4 career staff here that are cross-trained from EMS to also fire and rescue. That's very important to note those busiest times. Again, busiest day Wednesday, which is a weekday, and busiest times of day are during the day hours. Next slide, please. The response time, we are still through all, again, volunteer supplemented by our career staff. We are still at 4 minutes, 3.95 minutes for the quarter, which will make reference again to the matrix report. 9 minutes or less to respond for a volunteer fire company. And then the county response time is 6 minutes. So we are within standard for both the matrix report and the county response time. Next slide, please. And the next slide. So for the quarter, the revenue budget highlights, I think most of the mayor and council has seen 2 things: the event parking. We appreciate the town in sharing that, and especially your economic business development director, Ivy Wells, for letting us know when there's special events. Doesn't bring in a lot of money, but as you can see, fall events, $200 or $300 a day for parking. Also, I think brings the fire company showing the citizens that, hey, you can park back there as long as the weather's permitting. Christmas parade, pretty disappointing there, packed lot, but only $25. And then, of course, unfortunately, with COVID, the New Year's had to be canceled. Our Friday night dinners, our goal was to do a simple event, trying to do some fundraisers, and our goal is simple events for the volunteer time availability. The times have changed with our call value, availability to do an all day clam bake or something like that, where the volunteers have to be up here 10 or 12 hours preparing, serving, and then cleaning up. I would say that's those events are probably gone for good. But trying to do these small dinners, our goal was 200 dinners from 4:30 to 7 o'clock. We did sell out our first fried chicken dinner, and we appreciate the public's support. Again, the town, especially Ms. Wells, sharing those out, and whoever else is controlling the town Facebook. But that's our goal. So after we get all done, we'll be able to, in the next quarterly report, be able to share with you, when we get all done, what those dinners help bring into the fire company. Our annual fund drive letter was mailed out. We're very pleased, 20% increase over last year, which we knew it would be an increase because, of course, we were down last year with COVID. So appreciate the public support when they get that. The other thing we did with the fund drive letter is labeled a little different on the front. If you all, I'm sure you received them at your residences, and the public did. You'll notice it wasn't postal patron, but actually to the address. They might have said resident at XYZ Main Street, but just to make it not look so much like junk mail, if you will. So next slide, please. The expense budget highlights, I'm sure everybody knows, we listened to a little bit of your previous agenda items. Going to the grocery store, going to the gas station, we have to buy diesel fuel and gasoline as well, diesel fuel for most of our vehicles. We're slightly over 50% 6 months into the year, so we'll monitor that. And, we're at the mercy of how many calls we have as how much fuel we use. Vehicle maintenance, you'll see in the next quarterly report, because we're going through that process now of completing our inspections of our vehicles, our annual inspections. You see we've got a major transmission repair in progress and some fire pump repairs pending. So next quarterly report, we'll be able to share with Mayor and Council where we are with that budget expense. Next slide, please. Just reiterate our request from the surplus and ARPA funds. We know the final rule just came out, and it's effective in April, so I'm sure you're reviewing what you're allowed to spend those funds on, but we've just renewed our request that we sent before with breathing apparatus, which is the air packs that go on the firefighter's back being the #1 priority, and the second being the apparatus, and then third, if eligible and available funds to help with the rear parking lot, because again, we can only open that if the weather is cooperating, because if it's wet, we're going to have tow trucks back there. And next slide. Just our capital apparatus replacement, just adding from the previous slide. 2 of our engines, we got one that's 33 years old, 23 years old, followed by the third is 15 years old. And then our rescue truck is 22 years old. So our apparatus is aging, going along with the theme that you've already heard tonight, with the finances and what have you. So Mayor and Council receives a full inventory of that December of each year. So you can see all of our apparatus. Thank you. Next slide, please. I guess I'll pause there, Mr. Mayor, in case anybody had any questions of the fire report of Chief Road or I.
Thank you. Any questions for the fire department or fire company in reference to the presentation so far?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm surprised by the age of how old these engines and rescue trucks are, because they certainly look brand new. So that's a credit to how well you maintain them.
The other side is that I'm not that old and I remember some of these coming in. and it doesn't seem like it's been that long.
Yeah, and thank you, Councilmember Nerve. We appreciate that. And that's as you all see and the public sees our expenses when we present the budget. We make sure that we follow all of the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, and DOT recommendations to keep these dependable. And then when we find something that is wrong, we take the action to get it fixed. We don't let that fester, because that's just good maintenance, good use of the funds that we get from the county, the town, and the public to maintain it and not let it fester. So, but thank you for that comment.
Any other questions or comments from the council regarding the presentation so far? President Fitzgerald and Chief Rhodes, the only thing I would like to add is that you've touched on the publication for the town events. I do want to thank you both for sending over the flyers. Whenever you have stuff like that, we can pump that out. Ms. Wells does handle a lot of the promotion on the town's Facebook and Instagram and things of that nature, and so does Mary Bolin, our deputy town administrator. And she's also put that on our public access channel, which I know some businesses in the area do have that running on their TVs regularly. So that's nice to have that extra set of promotion, and we do appreciate that. And how was the success of your dinner? What was it, last weekend, right?
So Friday night we did 147 out of the 200 dinners that we had prepared. So that's good. That's okay. So we'll take this opportunity, Mr. Mayor. So the public listening, February 18th will be the spaghetti dinner, and then March the 18th on that third Friday will be another fried chicken dinner, and then we'll conclude that fundraiser. And we'll just tell you exactly why we'll conclude it, because when April and May and these summer months come, our members have other responsibilities, Little League starts and ball and all that. So we'll, if they're successful, which they seem to be, and nothing changes, we'll come back in October and start those again on Friday nights.
Perfect. That's great news, and make sure we have those promotions so that we can pump those out also.
Yes, sir. And we'll take the next slide to go to EMS, if that's okay with the mayor and council.
That is. Thank you.
Okay, so this will be the EMS report. So this is for the same quarter, 306 EMS calls in town, which is 62.71%, and the balance is the out of town calls, 182 and 37%. So this is normal. This is what we normally run. As you know, when we give presentations to you, we're usually in the 60-40 range for in and out of town calls. Next slide, please. Transports, similar percentage, 63% of the calls are transports. That's 193. The non-transports, and just reminds mayor and council and the public listening, the non-transports are the calls that we respond to where somebody just needs assistance, or they've changed their mind, or it's an automobile accident and the people refuse. So we do have non-transports, but it does take our resources. It's still the paramedic, the EMT, the ambulance. It's still sometimes it's use of equipment and supplies, but it does take up resources. But we don't transport. And then as another reminder, non-transports, we cannot provide any billing to that person's insurance or any coverage that they may have, automobile coverage if there's a no transport. And then we have the out of town calls listed at the bottom, the 81 and the 101 non-transports. Next slide, please. The busiest days for EMS, a little different from the fire. It's a Friday followed by Thursday. Again, busiest times during the day, 11 to 3 and then 3 to 7. And this is why we use the county funds that were provided for the 2 additional emergency medical technician firefighters. That's why their shift is from 7 in the morning to 7 p.m. Because they're here to supplement, what the volunteers can't cover. So that does prove out that our scheduling coincides with the busiest times. Next slide, please. Response times just a little over a minute. It's a little higher than we really want it to be. But again, we have to put the caveat there. The reason it's a touch higher is because this includes the second and third run. calls, which could be nighttime, and we do not have the full crew at night. We only have 1.5. We have 3 people here, so that requires a volunteer to respond here from home, or 2 volunteers to respond from home to get the 3rd ambulance out. We do have a great increase in simultaneous calls. What simultaneous calls are 2 at one time, or the first ambulance is out and the second call comes in while they're either still caring for that patient or at the hospital. We are seeing increased hospital times for offloading, both at AGH and at Tidal Health Peninsula Regional, and this is nationwide. Ambulances having to wait, and again, it's an effect of COVID, but it does affect our operations because when we get to a hospital, we've got to give a report to the nurse, offload the patient, sanitize the ambulance properly to get to the next call, and we can't do that as quickly with the COVID disinfection procedures, as well as the hospital is busy. The hospital's got to find a room in the emergency department to offload that patient. So that's something to point out to you. Next slide, please. And next slide. Unfortunately, opposite from the fire, and we did the same mailing and eliminated the postal patron and put the address on there. We are 25% less to date. We do have some that will come in the next quarter. So on the next quarterly report, we'll let you know how that finalizes. But the EMS, we're 25% less. I do want to recognize and thank Councilmember Nur for his reply. I put that asterisk there. We, again, the entire 21811 zip code, which affects our company and Ocean Ponds and some of Shaw's response, received a donation drive letter, and I did get some calls. We've already donated to you. Well, no, you have not. Well, yes, we did. This summer, we sent some money in for the paramedics. Well, unfortunately, that and that may attribute to why we're less. We'll see where we are at the next quarter. So and again, I thank Councilmember Nur for his attention, and he's on that foundation to see if he can provide some assistance. So thank you, and thank you for sending the email that you're looking at that for us. Greatly appreciated. Just a note here on the revenue, the county provided the additional $115,000. We did immediately at the fiscal year start that second emergency medical technician firefighter during the day hours. That's 7 days a week from 7 in the morning to 7 p.m. The full-time staff have been hired, so we do that for recruitment and retention. So it's people here that are on benefits and hopefully going to stay with us. The county provide that funding to do that. Next slide, please. The expense, we are about 5% over budget in the first 6 months, so about 55% of our payroll budget. That is due to shift coverage. We're no different than anybody else. We have had COVID illnesses and people missing for sick time because we don't want them to even come to work if they don't feel well. So we have had to cover these shifts. And again, we'll just keep monitoring that each quarter, but the staff has to be paid. And we have our minimum staffing model that we have the people here. So that's overtime, where we call in part-time people or hold people over to make sure that there are people here to respond on the ambulance and support the fire and rescue services. Vehicle maintenance and repair, we're not over budget now, but the chief engineer reported to me tonight we've got some unexpected repairs to the ambulance. Again, just completed those annual inspections. Some things were shown. And it's also the importance of the replacement schedule, especially on ambulances. They need to stay on it. We stretched them out last time, but there's a lot of electronics and stuff in these ambulances. It's important for us to stay on the replacement schedule, which again, we submitted to Mayor and Council back in December. Next slide, please. Just the capital fund summary. There's our replacements that'll be due in those years. We do receive a county allotment per ambulance. That's what we use to pay for the ambulances. We have a loan payment still for one ambulance, and the town's not been providing us any separate capital funds for the ambulance, for several ambulance replacements. Cardiac monitors, we're still working on that. That is part of our ARPA grant. I think that's the next slide. And again, we don't have any contingency fund for emergencies. So the cardiac monitors, won't bore you and read every slide, but that's the 4 items for the surplus of ARPA funds. Cardiac monitors, again, that's the units that are used on most every ambulance call, where the paramedic monitors the cardiac heart monitor of the patient. We talked before about the emergency event response vehicle that was talked about during the study because of the events uptown and where the streets are closed. And again, that was a big discussion during this matrix study. The ambulance replacements that you saw 2025 and forward, and then the additional EMT night staffing so we can get up to the 4 staffed 24 hours. Next slide, please. And it's just imperative, we can't express it enough, that we need to get those 4 people here 24/7. Our call volume is up not only for EMS, but fire and rescue and the simultaneous calls, the volunteer availability. So we'll be discussing that. That'll be one of our priorities when we present budget in a month or so, part of our contract renewal. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, Town Administrator's report. Apologize. So I'm not going to do that report.
Well, thank you. And any questions from the council? I see I have a question from Councilmember Orris for the fire company.
Yeah, by the way, I'm using the hand thing because it seems like it's easier, but
It's much easier, and I do appreciate that.
So President Fitzgerald, just really 2 questions. With the hospital offloading, is the county doing the decon that they were doing earlier with COVID?
So no, they took that down. I can only, and RJ does in his permanent profession, work for the county emergency services. I believe it was taken down when I talked to the fire marshal's office. Is they're worried about the blowing, the winter time, because it was just a canvas type tent. We disinfect back here at the station. We have the sprayers and the stuff, so they come back to the station and disinfect. And that runs into the problem again about the quick turnaround time. They've got to get back here and do it. They do carry some supplies on the ambulance where one provider will jump in the front of the ambulance and the other one will get in the back and be wiping down as they go to the next call. So we can assure all of our people and our providers that when the ambulance comes to them, it has been properly disinfected and ready to go. It may be just a different procedure. They're not using that large pump. They're either coming back or they're doing it quickly with a spray bottle and what have you on the way to another call.
Well, thank you for that and explaining it all. Then my other question was just how the county meetings or the meetings with the county are going with the chiefs and whatnot, or the funding.
So the Worcester County Fire EMS Strategic Planning Committee, which I do sit on, they're going well. We share a lot of statistics. We did bring up at our last meeting that the 3 commissioners on that group should be meeting with the mayors and councils and the Ocean Ponds Association now within the next period of time, because every municipality and Ocean Ponds Association is coming up on their budget to share what their thoughts are, not what our thoughts are. I think you hear from us all the time and you see the calls, but I think the elected officials at the county level and the municipal level need to discuss what you all think is equitable funding or formulas, and that was discussed at the last meeting. So I have not gotten an update. None of the members of the committee have gotten an update from the 3 commissioners that sit on that as to when they're going to do that. So I wouldn't be surprised, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Council members, that you'll be getting some notice for a discussion. And I don't know how they'll handle that, if that's going to be it in a entirety, all the mayor and council, or a select work group, because sometimes we get more done in a work group situation.
You both.
Thank you. Councilmember Burrell, you have your hand up.
Yes. I have two comments. First of all, Dave, thank you for your presentations, and you have provided a lot of information. But if I am going to gauge how the fire department and the EMS are doing, I need something to compare the numbers you have presented to. Whether it is numbers from same time last year, whether it is the projected budget as opposed to actual spending, but I need something that will help me to determine for myself if there is increased need for staffing, or if there is an increased need for fuel. You have provided numbers, but I just can't ascertain where the fire department is as compared to last year, or where you have planned to be at this time. So if you could provide, when you give these numbers, if you could provide a comparison to where you were last year or what was budgeted this year to actual, that would help me a lot. And my second question or comment, is there any law or regulation that would prevent the fire department or the EMS to waging a fee for those non-transports?
Yes, there is we are precluded from charging if we do not provide a transport service. There is a House bill, I think it's House Bill 43 or 44. They tried this last year as well. It did not pass. For medical assistance, the state is trying, and again, it's House Bill 43 or 44, already been in legislature this year, already been filed, that will allow us to bill Medicaid patients only for a non-transport, but for EMS, for insurance purposes and the like, we cannot bill if we did not load the patient in the ambulance and transport them to a proper medical facility.
That really seems unfair to me. You activate all of this equipment and staff and get to the scene, and the person decides not to be transported after you have bore the expense of that trip, and it really doesn't seem fair.
No, Councilmember Earl will agree with you. It's even worse than that. So you get the full picture of it. When we go and provide treatment, we stay on the scene for specific calls, medical emergencies, overdoses, et cetera, and we provide IVs, medicines, and the person feels better and is competent to refuse service, which means they're acclimated to where they are, who they are, and they can refuse. That's even more of an expense because now we have used a lot of supplies that we will not get reimbursed for, and some of them are drugs. The way they work is we get restocked for some medications at the hospital, so it even affects the hospital's bottom line. So we agree with you. We agree with you, and we thank you for your support.
And David Fitzgerald, to your point, it was on my list to discuss. It's House Bill 44. It's the Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Emergency Service Transporters Reimbursement. And to that point, some of the summary points are to allow EMS providers to be reimbursed for transport to facilities other than a hospital when appropriate, i.e. urgent care facilities, allow emergency medical services providers to provide mobile integrated health services, which help, like you mentioned, the bottom line for the hospitals, and then reimburse EMS providers for the cost of care they provide, not only the cost of transportation. The range of the care envisioned in the bill should be pinned to the transport costs already in law and modified by this bill. So my question is has the fire department or a fire company or EMS entity taken a position on this bill?
So it's the same as last year. We'll communicate as that comes into committee. I think they had first committee yesterday. I know that our colleagues in Frederick County went, and I looked at some of the notes. Another county went, and we will, of course, ask our county commissioners and our local delegates and Senate to support that bill. And we usually wait till at least it gets through one committee meeting to see if there's any points that we need to emphasize after we see the committee minutes to just make for a more concise and appropriate letter of response after they've had their first committee meeting on it.
So they do accept the written testimony. So my request to you would be, can you get together, to the council member Burrell's point, some of the historical data that you have on the non-transport calls, and maybe even if you have some economic impact to that we can pin down, and then the town can take a position on the bill and send in written testimony, and if need be, we can even testify for that.
Yeah, we won't be able to do anything on the non-transports. We'll be able to tell you how many there are, just like the slide, but we won't know how many of those are medical assistants because we don't ask. We can say, because also part of that bill that I didn't hear you read is right now, Maryland medical assistants, we can only bill $100. It has been that way for, I think, 20 years. So that bill also provides a $25 per year increase up to when it gets to $300, which is going to take some time at $25 a clip. But we'll be able to provide the number of medical assistance patients we transported, and then everybody can do the math on what the $25 more per year would help. But it's been $100, Mr. Mayor, I think for 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. Now, if you can send that data over, at least like 3 years of non-transports, if you have it, so that we can paint a picture. And then any information you have on that medical assistance transport data that you have. And if you could have that for 3 years, if you send that to me, we'll take a position on the bill to support it. And then we can also coordinate that response with the county commissioners as well.
Yeah, we'll update our position letter from last year. I don't know if we did 3 years, but we'll update our position letter from last year, and we'll copy the mayor and council on it.
Thank you. And if you, yeah, I mean, they'll move quick with the committee stuff. So if you can send that over as soon as possible, we'll draft something.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? All right. Well, thank you both. Thank you for the service that you provide to the town of Berlin and for the quarterly presentations. And to your point, we'll also send some correspondence to the commissioners to ask for the findings of their most recent meetings with the fire chiefs, just so that we can start having those meetings together to discuss the FY23 budget.
Okay, and the meetings aren't with the fire chiefs, if I can just correct you, so you don't send a letter down there and they don't reply to you. It's with the Worcester County Fire EMS Strategic Planning Committee. I just don't want you to send a letter down and they reply back to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.
And let's move on to agenda item number 9, which is the town administrator's report.
Mayor and council, I'll be as brief as I can. I just want to reiterate, I think we all have this evening have heard a lot of information. We've taken a lot in. I think all the presentations that we've had tonight have been fantastic. The common thread that I'm hearing is capital surpluses and inflation. So we're in, from a departmental operational perspective, we're into full budget mode now. So I can tell you, again, not to belabor the topic, but inflation it's front stage. I mean, we'll see more as we go forward, but we're into the capital request right now. And I think we know across the board with electric and water, sewer, and with public works and all the departments for that matter, everything is gone up significantly in price. Some of the things that we keep in stock and things that we use on a weekly basis, the increases in prices are just mind-boggling. So let's keep that in the back of our mind as we go forward. And that is pretty much what I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. While you're on, if you don't mind, do we have department heads that want to report out?
Yes, let's. I'd like for Ivy to report first, please.
Okay. Ivy, are you with us?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening. Thank you.
Sure. Actually, I don't have anything to report tonight other than what was put in my weekly report. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just go down the list now, Mayor.
Okay. We have Natalie, you're next on my list, Finance Director Slay.
Jeff mentioned we are going over the capital projects for the budget fiscal 23. Just a reminder on the schedule, we have a meeting. It's a general fund fiscal 23 capital projects work session and also a real estate tax rate projections. And I'm hoping to get the actual certificate with the assessed values from the county by then. It is February 14th at 5 o'clock. I have placed a hard copy of the audited financial statements in the pretty binders provided by PKS in your mailboxes if you haven't picked it up. Also, I have sent it in PDF. And if you go sometimes through or after today's presentations, you have any questions, please just call me so we can discuss and I can explain. So each of you are very comfortable with that going into the budget process as well. If you have any questions, call me or stop by to see us to talk about it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next on my list is Jimmy Charles, Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Up next is our Deputy Town Administrator, Mary Boland.
I don't have anything this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Administrative Manager, Kelsey Jensen.
I just have one thing to report. Chris Carroll with One Digital will be doing his Social Security Administration and Medicare presentation on January 27th at 10 a.m. via Zoom. So I've sent that link out. If you need it, please let me know. Also, total comp statements, W-2s and 1095s will be going out tomorrow. Sorry, I'm getting over an illness, so I'm hard to understand, but and then we have 2 interviews on Wednesday for a plant operator trainee position. So hopefully we can find somebody that'll fit that role.
Thank you. Up next is Jamie Latcham, Water Resources.
I have nothing. I already spoke enough tonight.
Thank you. Dave Engelhardt, Planning and Zoning.
I have nothing further to add tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. David Gaskell, Town Attorney.
I have nothing.
Thank you. Chief Downing, Police Department.
Good evening, everyone. Tomorrow, we will be meeting with Lexipol to start the process with them in regards to updating the policies and procedures. We'll be also, and we have been working on a budget, but we'll be meeting with the financial director. And we already do see increases on a lot of our items and equipment. So that'll be something we have to deal with. And we're also reviewing the police reform and additional unfunded mandates that it is actually going to cause us in the town and the initial responsibilities for manpower. That's my report.
Thank you, Chief. Up next is Tim Lawrence, Electric Utility.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just have a few things to report on. Today, we started meter readings, so we're going to be out and about in people's yards and things for the next week. And then also, on February 7th and 8th, we have to do our 3-year stack testing at the power plant to satisfy our emissions requirements with the MDE, Maryland Department of Environment. And then also there's a company working in town. You might see them around. It's a company called Osmos. They're actually doing a pole inspection for Verizon. Well, the poles, most of the poles happen to be owned by the town of Berlin. So the pole inspection is actually helping both of us. It's notifying us of any issues with our poles. So they're helping Verizon out and us at the same time. And then also on Friday, this past Friday at 9 o'clock at night during the snowstorm, there was a vehicle accident that occurred on Flower Street up by the entrance into the landfill. A young gentleman in a car was driving a little too fast, lost control, and broke the utility pole in half. We were able to secure it for the night, and then we came in Saturday morning and we replaced the pole, utility pole. There was no outage that occurred, so nobody was out of power. That's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for any of our department heads? Tim, I have one question for you, if you don't mind. The pole assessment that's being done, I see some like banding and stuff that's being put on the poles. What is that?
That is actually a treatment for the base of the pole. In this area, we're not that far above sea level, so there's a lot of moisture in the ground. That wrap that you're seeing around the pole is basically a treatment that extends the life of the pole. So every pole that they dig down at, they check it to see if it's rotten or not. If the pole's in good shape, they put that wrap around it, and that just extends the life of the pole.
Thank you. I was wondering what that was.
Yep.
All right. Let's move on to agenda item number 11, comments from the council, and we'll take them in the order that they appear on my screen. Vice President Burrell, you're up.
I just have one comment. This has been a relatively long meeting, but a very good meeting.
Thank you. I know that we discussed the long meetings, but due to some of the timing, it's difficult. It seems like we have a light one and then we have a heavy one, but we do try to even those out the best that we can. So thank you for that. Councilmember Nur, you're up on my list.
Sure. Again, I'll ditto what Dean said. Excellent meeting. But I did want to ask you, Mr. Mayor, when we're going to circle back to short-term rentals. I don't want to just cast that aside.
No, but the thing is that I think short-term rentals, we've had some really good discussions. I think the next step is a proposed draft ordinance. And I really do think that some of the public comment is better in person. So I hope to bring that up during one of our upcoming meetings. They are going to be rather stacked with the budget, but I think it's important that we get that in place before the start of the fiscal year and furthermore for the rental season. So it is on the list of things that are upcoming, but I think that public comment is best in person. But
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nichols, you're up.
Nothing to say.
Thank you. Councilmember Morris, you're up.
Thank you. Just real quick, this has been a great meeting, and I just wanted to politely remind the mayor that we haven't received the committee listing yet. I know you've been busy with the goals, so I just wanted to put another bug in your ear there. And then finally, I did see before the meeting for our friends over in Baltimore City, Governor Hogan has ordered the flags at half-staff. So
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Well, the first item, we haven't forgotten about the boards and commissions. Joanne Unger what I deem sometimes the true mayor, my assistant, has compiled that list for us of everybody that's applied and the number for each position. So that should be available to the council this week. Next, the flags, the town administrator and I talked at the beginning of the meeting. We get that flag status update. So the US flag and the Maryland flag have been lowered throughout town. And once again, our thoughts and prayers are with the families in Baltimore and Baltimore City for that matter. Let's see, Councilmember Purnell, you're not on my list here, but I think you're still with us, right?
I'm here.
Okay, there you are.
Yeah, just want to give a big shout out to Arnold, the police department. Really nice seeing the police cars at all the various intersections. They're much more visible than they've been in the past, and I think it's making a big difference. I'm seeing a lot more people going a little slower, people paying more attention, and they're just good job. Also, all the speed cameras I see are all hardwired now, which is awesome. So whoever made that happen, that's great.
And just to denote, those are they're like radar boards. They're not taking pictures of people or speeding. When it flashes, it's just saying, hey, you're going too fast, slow it down. But those are like radar boards. So thank you.
It's a good thing. I'm certain it's helping.
Thank you.
They're called display boards, and we have to thank Tim for actually they're making that happen.
Awesome.
And then up next is item number 12, comments from the mayor. The only thing I would like to add is that I do want to thank some of our town employees. Many of you have noticed on social media, it's been around that Althea, our town chicken, our little mascot, is no longer with us, and that she has been buried at Stephen Decatur Park. I want to thank my colleagues on the council for approving that burial over at the park. There is also a nice handmade marker from town staff, and I want to thank our finance director, Natalie Slay, Jimmy Charles, our public works director, and Bob Clark, our assistant superintendent of public works, for their craftsmanship in that memorial. We've also been approached by some residents in town that want to contribute a more permanent style marker. So hopefully we can make that a more permanent fixture right there in the park. So thank you to everyone. And that concludes my comments for the evening. We'll move on to Mary. Do we have any comments or received any letters or anything from the public?
The only thing that was received was an email that was forwarded out to all the council members, and it is concerning concerns with speeding and traffic in the downtown area.
Do you have that to read by any chance?
I do. It's a little lengthy, but I will read it.
Thank you.
It came from Sarah Simon on Thursday, January 20th. Hello, Town Council. In light of recent events on Main Street with Althea the chicken and an ongoing conversation about safety with speeding and traffic patterns in town, I would like to discuss some ideas I have to move forward. I understand Main Street is a state road and appreciate the need to keep the designation for maintenance purposes. Can we explore the following with SHA? Number one, making the intersection of Old Ocean City Boulevard and Main Street at the Cheers location a four-way stop. Two, having a section of Main Street from the Sterling Tavern to the corner of Rains to include Pitt Street, a walking-only promenade. This would serve many purposes, reduce traffic congestion and speeding, promote safety for shoppers, eliminate road closures for special events, thus allowing us to grow town events, and most importantly, support our small businesses in that area. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anything else from the public?
Not that I have seen. I don't see any questions posted, nor any hands raised.
All right. Any comments from the press?
Nothing.
All right. Councilmember Burrell, you're up.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Night, everyone.